Victoria Sinclair grabbed 6-year-old Emma by the throat and shoved her against the refrigerator. The child's head hit the stainless steel with a sickening thud. "I told you to set the table before breakfast, you worthless little brat!" 2-year-old Noah screamed from his high chair, reaching for his sister with tiny, desperate hands. Victoria whipped around. "Shut up, both of you, shut up!" She raised her hand again, but she didn't know someone was watching. Through the kitchen window, a gardener in worn boots and a fake beard stood frozen among the rose bushes. His hands shook with rage. His eyes burned with tears. Because that gardener was no gardener at all. He was Marcus Wellington, the third billionaire founder of Wellington Tech, and he had just watched his fiancée attack his children in his own home. For 2 weeks, he had lived as a stranger in his own mansion. For 2 weeks, he had gathered evidence. And now, watching his daughter gasp for breath against the refrigerator, he knew the time for watching was almost over. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Stay with me until the very end of this incredible story. And comment below to tell me which city you are watching from. I want to see how far this story travels around the world. Victoria released Emma's throat, and the little girl slid down the refrigerator door, gasping and coughing. Red marks bloomed on her pale neck like fingerprints of cruelty. "Get up," Victoria snapped. "Stop being dramatic." Emma pulled herself to her feet, one hand pressed against her throat. She didn't cry. She had learned weeks ago that crying only made things worse. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Sinclair," she whispered, her voice ragged. "I forgot about the table." "You forgot." Victoria laughed sharp and cold. "That's always your excuse. You forgot. You didn't mean to. It was an accident." She grabbed Emma's chin, forcing the child to look at her. "Do you know what happens to little girls who keep forgetting?" Emma shook her head, eyes wide with terror. "They get sent away. To boarding schools. To foster homes. To places where nobody loves them, and nobody cares if they live or die." Victoria smiled, and it was the smile of a snake. "Is that what you want?" "No, ma'am." "Then set the table, now." Emma scrambled toward the dining room, her small hands shaking as she gathered plates and silverware. Behind her, Noah continued to cry in his high chair, his face red and streaked with tears. Victoria turned on him. "I said shut up." She grabbed his sippy cup and threw it across the room. It bounced off the wall and rolled under the stove. "You want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about." Outside, Marcus gripped the garden shears so hard the metal cut into his palms. Blood dripped onto the roses, red drops falling on red petals. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to move, to burst through that door, to grab Victoria and throw her out of his house forever. But he couldn't. Not yet. He had learned that lesson the hard way 3 weeks ago when he first suspected something was wrong. He had confronted Victoria directly, asking why Emma seemed so quiet, why Noah flinched at loud noises. Victoria had cried beautiful tears and accused him of not trusting her. She had twisted every question into an attack on her character. By the end of the conversation, Marcus had been apologizing to her. That night, he had called his lawyer and best friend, David Carter. "I think something's wrong," Marcus had said, "but I can't prove it." "Then get proof," David replied. "Real proof. The kind that holds up in court." "How?" "You're a smart man, Marcus. Figure it out." And so Marcus had figured it out. He had hired an actor named Miguel Santos to impersonate him on phone calls and video chats. He had bought a disguise from a theatrical supply store. He had created a fake identity, Robert Miller, and applied for the open gardener position at his own mansion. Victoria had never looked twice at him. Why would she? He was just the help, invisible, beneath her notice. But he saw everything. Now, watching through the kitchen window, he pulled out his phone and checked that the recording app was running. The microphone hidden in his shirt pocket captured every word, every threat, every moment of abuse. Soon, very soon, he would have enough. The back door opened and Destiny Johnson stepped onto the terrace. Marcus had noticed her from his first day as Robert Miller. She was 29 years old, with warm brown skin and natural hair pulled back in a professional bun. Her eyes held a kindness that seemed out of place in this house of horrors. But there was steel beneath that kindness. He had seen it. "Mrs. Sinclair," Destiny called into the kitchen. "The florist is here about the arrangements for Saturday's party." Victoria's demeanor changed instantly. The monster vanished, replaced by a gracious hostess with a pleasant smile. "Tell them I'll be right there." She smoothed her dress and checked her reflection in the microwave door. "And clean up this mess in the kitchen. It's disgusting." "Yes, ma'am." Victoria swept past Destiny without another glance, her heels clicking down the hallway toward the front door. The moment she was gone, Destiny rushed to Noah. She unbuckled him from the high chair and gathered him into her arms, stroking his hair and murmuring soft words of comfort. "Shh, baby boy. It's okay. She's gone now. You're safe." Noah buried his face in her shoulder, his small body shaking with sobs. Emma appeared in the doorway, her neck still bearing the red marks of Victoria's fingers. "Miss Destiny." Destiny looked up, and Marcus saw the horror in her eyes when she noticed the marks. "Oh, baby girl. Come here." Emma ran to her, and Destiny wrapped one arm around the child while still holding Noah with the other. The three of them stood there in the kitchen, a small island of love in an ocean of cruelty. "She said she's going to send me away," Emma whispered. "To a place where nobody loves me." "That's not true," Destiny said firmly. "That's a lie. Your daddy loves you more than anything in the world." "Then why doesn't he come home? Why does he let her hurt us?" Marcus felt those words like a knife in his chest. He pressed his forehead against the window frame, fighting to control his breathing. "Your daddy doesn't know," Destiny said quietly. "He's far away on a business trip. But when he comes back, we're going to tell him everything, I promise. She said if we tell, she'll make it worse." "I know she did. But I'm going to find a way. I'm going to make sure your daddy knows the truth." Destiny pulled back and looked at both children. "Do you trust me?" Emma nodded slowly. "You're the only one who's nice to us." "Then trust me when I say this won't last forever. Help is coming. You just have to be brave a little while longer." Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. This woman, this stranger. She was the only thing standing between his children and complete destruction. He had to tell her the truth. But how? If she knew who he really was, would she understand why he had watched instead of acted, or would she hate him for his cowardice? There was only one way to find out. That afternoon, during the lunch break, Destiny brought a sandwich and a glass of water out to the garden. She always did this, sharing her own meal with the new gardener, because she sensed he needed kindness as much as anyone. "Hot day," she said, sitting down on the bench beneath the old oak tree. "Hot enough." Marcus agreed, keeping his voice low and rough. "You've been working hard." "Mrs. Sinclair complained about the hedges again, but honestly, they look fine to me. She complains about everything." "That she does." Destiny was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Robert, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Why do you keep looking at the house every time I see you? You're watching the windows like you're waiting for something." Marcus tensed. He hadn't realized he was being so obvious. "Old habit," he said carefully. "I like to know what's going on around me. Most gardeners I've met just want to do their work and go home. You're different." "Maybe I'm just nosy." Destiny shook her head. "No, it's something else. The way you look at those kids." She trailed off, studying his face. "You look at them like they mean something to you." Marcus felt his heart rate spike. She was perceptive. Too perceptive. "All kids mean something," he said. "They're innocent. They don't deserve whatever's happening in that house." "No, they don't." Destiny's jaw tightened. And a lot is happening, Mr. Robert. More than you know. Tell me. She hesitated, glancing back at the house. I could lose my job. Some things are more important than jobs. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition. Trust. A shared understanding that some battles are worth fighting regardless of the cost. That woman in there, Destiny said quietly, is not who she pretends to be. When Mr. Wellington is home, she's all smiles and sweetness. Perfect stepmother. Loving fiancée. But the moment he leaves, the mask comes off. It's worse than that. She hurts them, Mr. Robert. Not just yelling, not just strict rules. She hits them. She starves them. She threatens to send them away if they ever tell their father. And you've seen this? I've seen it. I've tried to stop it. But every time I interfere, she threatens to fire me and blacklist me from every agency in the city. Destiny's hands clenched in her lap. I grew up in Compton. My mama cleaned houses her whole life, so I could get an education. I have $60,000 in student loans and a degree I can't use. If I lose this job without a reference, I'm done. So you stay silent. I don't stay silent. I do what I can. I sneak food to the kids when she's not looking. I comfort them at night when they have nightmares. I stand between them and her whenever possible. Destiny's voice cracked. But it's not enough. Every day I watch those babies suffer, and I can't stop it. Do you know what that feels like? Marcus looked at her, this woman who was risking everything for children who weren't even hers. He thought about his own choices, hiding behind a disguise, gathering evidence while his children were being abused, waiting for the perfect moment while Emma's neck bore the marks of Victoria's fingers. Yes, he said quietly. I know exactly what that feels like. Something in his tone made Destiny pause. She studied his face more intently. Who are you, Mr. Robert? What do you mean? Your hands. They're blistered now, but when you first started they were soft, like you'd never done manual labor in your life. She gestured at his face. And that beard, the way you talk, everything about you feels wrong. Marcus felt the moment of decision arrive. He could lie. He could deflect. He could maintain the disguise a little longer, gather a little more evidence. But looking at Destiny Johnson, at the courage in her eyes and the pain in her voice, he knew that wasn't an option anymore. I'm going to tell you something, he said slowly. And you're going to be angry. You have every right to be angry, but I need you to hear me out before you react. You're scaring me. I'm scaring myself. Marcus took a deep breath. My name isn't Robert Miller. Then what is it? He reached up and began to peel off the fake beard. The adhesive tugged at his skin, but he barely noticed. What he noticed was the way Destiny's expression changed from confusion to shock to disbelief as his true face emerged. My name is Marcus Wellington, he said. This is my house. Those children are mine, and I've been here the whole time. Destiny shot to her feet, backing away from him, like he was a dangerous animal. No, that's not possible. You were in Singapore. I saw the video calls. An actor. Someone I hired to impersonate me while I investigated what was really happening. Investigated? Her voice rose with sudden fury. You mean you've been out here playing gardener while your kids were being beaten inside? I needed proof. I needed evidence that would hold up in court. Evidence? You want evidence? Destiny jabbed a finger toward the house. Go look at your daughter's neck. Go count the bruises on your son's arms. That's your evidence. I know, but Victoria is smart. She has lawyers' connections, the ability to manipulate any story in her favor. If I had confronted her without documentation, without recordings, without witnesses, she would have denied everything. She might have taken the children. She might have done exactly what she's already doing. Destiny was crying. Now tears of rage streaming down her cheeks. I've been in that house for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of watching those babies suffer. 3 weeks of risking my job, my future, everything I have to protect them. And their own father was right here the whole time doing nothing. I wasn't doing nothing, I was building a case. You were watching, that's all you were doing. Watching while she terrorized them. Watching while she called your daughter stupid and worthless. Watching while she threw your son's food on the floor and made him go hungry. Destiny shook her head in disgust. What kind of father does that? A desperate one. Marcus stood up, his hands spread in a gesture of surrender. A stupid one. A man so afraid of losing his children that he forgot to actually protect them. Don't you dare try to make me feel sorry for you. I'm not. You're right about everything. I was a coward. I made the wrong choice, but I can't change what I've done. I can only change what happens next. And what happens next? You confront her. She denies everything. She turns your own kids against you. No. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her the recording app. I have 15 hours of documented abuse. Her voice, her threats, her admissions. I have recordings of her phone calls with her brother planning to defraud me, planning to... He stopped, swallowing hard. Planning to arrange my death once we're married. Destiny's anger flickered, replaced by shock. She's planning to kill you. After the wedding. After she's established as the children's stepmother. After she's manipulated my will and my estate plan. Marcus put the phone away. Victoria Sinclair is a professional con artist. Her real name is Victoria Morrison. Her father is serving 12 years for running a Ponzi scheme. She's done this before, targeting wealthy men, but I'm the biggest score of her career. So this whole thing, the engagement, the loving stepmother act, it was all fake. From the beginning, I was too blinded by grief to see it. Sarah, my wife, died 18 months ago. I was drowning. Victoria threw me a lifeline and I grabbed it without looking at what was attached to the other end. Destiny was quiet for a long moment. The anger hadn't left her eyes, but something else was creeping in. Understanding, maybe. Or at least the beginning of it. Those children love you, she said finally. Every night Emma prays for you to come home. Noah carries around a picture of you like a security blanket. They think you abandoned them. I know. Do you know what it feels like to be 6 years old and believe your father doesn't care if you're being hurt? Marcus felt tears sliding down his cheeks. I'm going to make it right. I swear to God I'm going to make it right. How? Victoria is hosting a garden party on Saturday. Important people. Witnesses. She's planning to show off the children, prove what a wonderful stepmother she is. Marcus's voice hardened. That's when I'm going to reveal myself. That's when I'm going to play the recordings. That's when everyone is going to see what she really is. And then she's gone. Forever. My lawyers have the divorce papers ready. The police have been briefed. By Saturday night, Victoria Sinclair will be facing fraud charges, assault charges, and possibly conspiracy to commit murder. Destiny stared at him. You've thought this all through. I've had 2 weeks with nothing to do but think. And what about me? When you expose her, she's going to know I was helping you. You weren't helping me. You didn't even know who I was. She won't believe that. She'll think we were working together from the start. Destiny laughed bitterly. Which we weren't, by the way. I was genuinely just trying to protect those kids on my own. I know. And that's why when this is over, I'm going to make sure you never have to work in another rich person's house again. School, career, whatever you need. I owe you more than I can ever repay. I don't want your money, Mr. Wellington. Marcus. And I'm not offering charity. I'm offering justice. You risked everything for my children. The least I can do is make sure you don't suffer for it. Destiny was quiet again, processing everything she had learned. The birds sang in the trees. The fountain bubbled in the garden. Somewhere inside the house, Victoria was planning her garden party, unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Saturday, Destiny said finally. That's 3 days away. Yes. 3 more days of watching her hurt those children. I know, but it's the last 3 days, I swear. And if something happens before then, if she goes too far? Marcus met her eyes. Then I'll drop everything and stop her. Evidence or no evidence, case or no case, I won't let her seriously hurt them. I've drawn that line. You should have drawn it weeks ago. You're right, I should have. Marcus exhaled slowly. Can you forgive me? Destiny shook her head. I don't know. Maybe. Eventually. But right now, the only thing I care about is getting those children out of that house safely. Everything else can wait. Fair enough. And you're going to start being honest with me. No more secrets. No more games. If we're going to do this together, I need to know I can trust you. You can. Prove it. How? Destiny thought for a moment. Tonight, when Victoria goes to sleep, I'm going to sneak the children extra food. I've been hiding snacks in the pantry, but she's getting suspicious. I need you to stand watch outside, make sure she doesn't catch us. Done. And tomorrow, you're going to tell me everything. Every recording you have, every piece of evidence, every detail of your plan. I'm not going into Saturday blind. Done. And when this is over... Destiny hesitated, her expression softening slightly. When this is over, you're going to hug those children and never let them go. You're going to be the father they deserve. No more business trips. No more being too busy to notice. You're going to be there. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I promise. Good. Destiny picked up the empty water glass and sandwich plate. Now get back to work before someone notices we've been talking too long. And Mr. Wellington. Marcus. Marcus. She tested the name on her tongue. Trim those hedges better. Victoria's right about one thing. They do look crooked. Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. Destiny walked back toward the house, and Marcus returned to his garden shears. But something had shifted between them. The secret was out. The alliance was formed. And the countdown to Saturday had begun. That night, Marcus stood in the shadows outside the kitchen door, watching for any sign of movement from the master bedroom. The house was dark except for a single light in the upstairs hallway, a nightlight that Destiny had insisted on installing because Noah was afraid of the dark. Inside the kitchen, Destiny moved silently, pulling hidden food from the back of the pantry. Cheese sticks, apple slices, graham crackers, small things that Victoria wouldn't notice were missing, but enough to fill two hungry little stomachs. The stairs creaked softly as Emma came down, her small hand gripping the railing. Behind her, Noah toddled carefully, his stuffed elephant clutched against his chest. Miss Destiny, Emma whispered. We heard you. I know, baby girl. I was coming to get you. Destiny spread the food on the kitchen counter. Eat quick before she wakes up. Emma grabbed a cheese stick and bit into it like she hadn't eaten in days, which Marcus realized with a sick feeling might not be far from the truth. Is the gardener outside? Emma asked between bites. Mr. Robert. Yes, he's watching for us. I like him. He's nice. Emma chewed thoughtfully. He reminds me of my daddy. Marcus pressed his hand against the doorframe, fighting to control his emotions. Why does he remind you of your daddy? Destiny asked carefully. I don't know. Something about his eyes. The way he looks at me and Noah. Emma shrugged. Daddy used to look at us like that, before he got too busy. Your daddy loves you, Emma. Even if he's far away right now. I know. I just wish he would come home and make the bad lady go away. He will, baby. Soon. Noah tugged at Destiny's sleeve. More, please. She handed him another cracker, watching as he stuffed it into his mouth with both hands. Slowly, sweet boy. You'll choke. He's so hungry, Emma said quietly. She only gave him half a banana for breakfast, and she threw his water on the floor when he asked for more. I know. I saw. Why does she hate us, Miss Destiny? What did we do wrong? Destiny knelt down so she was eye level with the little girl. Listen to me, Emma. You didn't do anything wrong. Not one single thing. The bad lady, she's broken inside. Something happened to her that made her mean and cruel. But that's not your fault. None of this is your fault. Then why is it happening to us? Because sometimes bad things happen to good people. but they don't last forever. Destiny glanced toward the door toward where Marcus stood watching. Help is coming, Emma. I promise you help is coming. Emma nodded slowly, then went back to eating. But there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Something that looked almost like hope. After the children had eaten their fill, Destiny led them back upstairs and tucked them into their beds. Marcus waited until she returned to the kitchen, then slipped inside. "Thank you," he whispered. "Don't thank me. Those are your children. You should be the one feeding them." "I know. After Saturday." After Saturday. Destiny began cleaning up the evidence of the midnight snack. "I've heard a lot of after promises in my life, Mr. Wellington. Most of them turned out to be lies. This one won't be." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of deception. "I want to believe you." "Then believe me." "It's not that simple. You lied to me for 2 weeks. You pretended to be someone you're not. How do I know you're not still pretending? Because I have nothing to gain by lying to you now. You know who I am. You know what I'm planning. If I wanted to betray you, I would have done it already." "Maybe. Or maybe you're just a rich man who's good at manipulation like every other rich man I've ever met." Marcus felt the words like a slap because they were fair. He had no right to expect her trust. "I can't prove myself with words," he said. "Only with actions. So watch my actions. Watch what I do on Saturday. And if I fail you, if I fail those children, then you'll never have to see me again." Destiny was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Saturday. I'll be watching." She slipped out of the kitchen and headed toward her quarters at the back of the house. Marcus stood alone in the darkness, surrounded by the evidence of his failure. 3 more days. 3 more days of watching. 3 more days of waiting. And then everything would change. The next morning, Victoria was in a foul mood. She stormed through the house, criticizing everything and everyone, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "These flowers are wilting. This floor is filthy. Why is there a fingerprint on this mirror?" Destiny followed her with a cleaning cloth, erasing each imperfection as quickly as Victoria identified them. "And where are those children? They should be practicing their greetings for Saturday. I won't have them embarrassing me in front of my guests." "They're in the playroom, ma'am. I'll bring them down." "See that you do. And make sure they're presentable. Emma's hair was a disaster yesterday." "Yes, ma'am." Destiny climbed the stairs and knocked softly on the playroom door. Emma and Noah were sitting on the floor, surrounded by blocks and crayons, enjoying a rare moment of unsupervised peace. "Time to go downstairs, babies. Mrs. Sinclair wants to practice your manners." Emma's face fell. "Do we have to?" "Just for a little while, and then you can come back up and play." "She's going to yell at us. She always yells." "I know, baby girl, but remember what I told you. Help is coming. You just have to be brave." Emma nodded and took Noah's hand. Together they walked downstairs to face the monster. Victoria was waiting in the living room, her arms crossed, her expression impatient. "There you are. Stand up straight. Both of you." The children snapped to attention like tiny soldiers. "When the guests arrive on Saturday, you will greet them properly. Watch me." Victoria demonstrated an exaggerated smile and handshake. "Good afternoon. Welcome to our home. My name is Emma Wellington, and this is my brother Noah. We're so pleased to meet you." "Good afternoon," Emma recited dutifully. "Welcome to our home. My name is Emma Wellington." Louder. "The guests need to hear you, not strain to listen." "Good afternoon. Welcome to our home." Better. But smile. You look like you're at a funeral. Emma forced her lips into a smile. It didn't reach her eyes. "And you." Victoria turned to Noah. "Can you say hello like a big boy?" Noah stared at her with wide, frightened eyes. "Hello," Victoria prompted. "Say hello." Low. Hello. The whole word. Hello. Low. Victoria's face darkened. For heaven's sake. He's 2 years old and he can barely speak. What have you been doing with him? The question was directed at Destiny, who stood quietly in the corner. He's developing normally, ma'am. 2-year-olds often have limited vocabulary. Limited? He's practically mute. His father is going to think I've damaged him. Marcus, watching through the window, felt a surge of cold fury. Damaged him, as if Noah was a piece of furniture. We'll practice more before Saturday, Destiny said carefully. I'm sure he'll do fine. He'd better. I won't have my guests thinking I can't handle 2 small children. Victoria checked her phone. I have a lunch meeting. Make sure they're presentable when I return. And Sophia. Destiny didn't bother to correct her name. Yes, ma'am. I've noticed food going missing from the pantry. Crackers, cheese sticks, things like that. Do you know anything about it? Marcus saw Destiny tense almost imperceptibly. No, ma'am. Maybe mice. Mice. Victoria's eyes narrowed. In a $12 million house, I don't think so. I'll set some traps just in case. Do that. And if I find out someone has been feeding these children behind my back. Victoria smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. There will be consequences. She swept out of the room, heels clicking, leaving a trail of fear in her wake. Destiny waited until she heard Victoria's car pull out of the driveway. Then she rushed to the children and gathered them into her arms. You did so good, she whispered. I'm so proud of you. She's scary, Noah whimpered. I know, baby boy, but she won't be here much longer. I promise. Outside, Marcus made a decision. The timeline needed to change. Victoria was getting suspicious about the food, which meant she might be getting suspicious about other things too. If she discovered the truth before Saturday. He pulled out his phone and texted David Carter. Move everything up. Friday night instead of Saturday. I'll explain later. David's response came within seconds. Are you sure that's less than 48 hours? I'm sure. Victoria is getting too close. We need to act before she figures out what's happening. I'll make the arrangements. But Marcus, be careful. Cornered animals are dangerous. Marcus put the phone away and looked through the window at his children still wrapped in Destiny's protective embrace. 48 hours. 48 hours until the confrontation. 48 hours until Victoria Sinclair's world came crashing down. He just had to make sure his children survived until then. That afternoon, Victoria returned from her lunch meeting in an even worse mood than before. She had been drinking. Marcus could tell from the slight slur in her words the extra sharpness in her movements. Where are those children? She demanded. Napping, ma'am, Destiny replied. They were tired after practice. Tired? They're always tired. They're always hungry. They're always something. Victoria poured herself another drink from the bar cart in the living room. Do you know how exhausting it is dealing with someone else's brats day after day? Destiny said nothing. Of course you don't. You just show up, do your little chores, and leave. You don't have to live with them. You don't have to pretend to care about their stupid drawings and their endless questions and their crying. They're children, ma'am. It's what children do. It's what badly raised children do. Victoria drained her glass. Their mother clearly had no idea what she was doing. Spoiled them rotten. And now I'm supposed to fix years of damage in a few months. Marcus gripped his garden shears, imagining what he would do if Victoria said one more word about Sarah. Their mother died, ma'am. They're still grieving. Grieving, they're 6 and 2. They don't even know what grief means. Victoria laughed bitterly. You know what I think they're playing me. I think they know exactly what they're doing, acting sad and scared, so I'll feel sorry for them. But I'm not falling for it. With respect, ma'am, I don't pay you to think. Victoria slammed her glass down on the bar cart. I pay you to clean and cook and stay out of my way. Maybe you should remember that. Yes, ma'am. And another thing. Victoria stepped closer to Destiny, close enough that she could smell the alcohol on her breath. I know you've been undermining me, comforting the children when I discipline them, making them think I'm the bad guy and you're their savior. I haven't. Don't lie to me. Victoria's hand shot out and grabbed Destiny's wrist. I see the way they look at you. Like you're their mother instead of me. Like you matter more than I do. Ma'am, please, you're hurting me. Good. Victoria squeezed harder. Maybe pain will teach you to respect your betters. Let go of her. The voice came from the doorway. Emma stood there, her small fists clenched, her face pale but determined. Victoria released Destiny's wrist and turned to face the child. Excuse me. I said let go of her. Miss Destiny didn't do anything wrong. Emma, go back upstairs, Destiny began. No. Emma's voice shook, but she didn't move. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of watching you hurt people. My daddy is going to come home, and when he does, he's going to make you go away forever. Victoria stared at the little girl for a long moment. Then she smiled, slow and dangerous. Is that so? Yes. And what makes you think your daddy will believe you? What makes you think he'll choose you over me? Because he loves us, and you're mean, and he's going to see what you really are. Victoria's hand moved so fast that Destiny barely had time to react. But she did react, throwing herself between Victoria and Emma just as the slap landed. The blow caught Destiny across the face hard enough to spin her sideways. She stumbled, catching herself on the edge of the bar cart. You stupid woman! Victoria snarled. That wasn't meant for you. I know, Destiny said, straightening up. Her cheek was already starting to swell. That's why I got in the way. Victoria stared at her with something approaching disbelief. You would take a hit for someone else's child. I would take a hit for any child, and I would take 100 more if it meant keeping your hands off her. For a moment, something flickered in Victoria's eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition that she had finally met someone who wouldn't back down. You're fired, Victoria said quietly. Pack your things and get out. Gladly. And if I ever see you near this house again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. You won't have to worry about that. Destiny took Emma's hand and began leading her toward the stairs. Come on, baby girl, let's go check on your brother. Wait. Victoria's voice was sharp. The child stays. No. Excuse me. I said no. Destiny turned to face her. You can fire me. You can threaten me. You can hit me as many times as you want. But I'm not leaving these children alone with you. Not now, not ever. You don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Mrs. Sinclair, and I'm making mine. The two women stared at each other across the living room. Victoria's face was flushed with rage. Destiny's was calm, despite the bruise forming on her cheek. Outside, Marcus made his own choice. He had seen enough, recorded enough, waited enough. It was time. He dropped the garden shears and walked toward the back door. His heart pounded in his chest, but his steps were steady. This was the moment. This was the confrontation he had been building toward for 2 weeks. But before he could reach the door, his phone buzzed with an incoming text. He glanced at the screen. It was from an unknown number. But the message made his blood run cold. I know who you are, Mr. Wellington, and I know what you're planning. Meet me at the pool house in 5 minutes or I tell Victoria everything. Brandon. Marcus froze. Brandon. Victoria's brother, her partner in crime. He looked through the window at Destiny, still standing protectively in front of Emma. At Victoria, still radiating fury. At Noah, who had appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching his elephant and crying. He had 5 minutes to decide. Confront Brandon and risk everything. Or ignore the message and hope it was a bluff. But Marcus Wellington hadn't built a billion-dollar company by ignoring threats. He turned away from the house and headed toward the pool house, his mind racing through possibilities. Brandon was a con artist, a manipulator, a man who had spent his whole life running scams with his sister. But Marcus was a billionaire, a strategist, a man who had outmaneuvered competitors and rivals for 20 years. This was just another negotiation, just another battle, and Marcus Wellington had never lost a battle that mattered. The pool house was dark when Marcus entered. The blinds were drawn, the lights off, the only illumination coming from a single candle on the table. Brandon Hayes sat in the shadows, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was younger than Marcus expected, maybe early 30s, with the same sharp features and cold eyes as his sister. "Mr. Wellington," Brandon said, not bothering to stand. "Or should I call you Robert Miller?" "Call me whatever you want. What do you want?" "Straight to business. I like that." Brandon took a sip of his whiskey. "What I want is simple. Money." "How much?" "5 million, cash, untraceable." Marcus almost laughed. "You're blackmailing me for $5 million. I'm offering you a business proposition. You pay me $5 million and I disappear. I take Victoria with me. You never hear from either of us again. And if I refuse? Then I tell Victoria everything. About your disguise, about your recordings, about your plan for Saturday." Brandon smiled. "How do you think she'll react when she finds out her future husband has been spying on her?" "She'll know the truth either way. The recordings don't lie." "No, but context matters. Right now you have the element of surprise. You're planning to reveal everything in front of witnesses, make her look like a monster." Brandon leaned forward. "But if she finds out beforehand, she'll spin the story. She'll say you set her up, manipulated her, created fake evidence. She'll hire lawyers, file lawsuits, drag this through the courts for years. And in the meantime, she'll have access to those children." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Brandon was right. If Victoria knew what was coming, she could prepare a defense. She could poison the narrative. She could make it look like Marcus was the abuser, the manipulator, the villain. "5 million is nothing to you," Brandon continued. "You probably spend that much on your house's upkeep. Pay me, and this all goes away. Victoria disappears. Your children are safe. Everybody wins. Except for justice." "Justice?" Brandon laughed. "There's no such thing as justice, Mr. Wellington. There's only power. And right now I have more of it than you do." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Emma facing down Victoria to protect Destiny. He thought about Destiny taking a slap meant for a child who wasn't even hers. He thought about Noah crying at the top of the stairs waiting for someone to rescue him, and he made his decision. "No." Brandon's smile faltered. "Excuse me. I said no, I'm not paying you anything." "Then Victoria finds out, tonight." "Let her find out." Marcus stepped forward, and there was something in his eyes that made Brandon shrink back in his chair. "Do you know what I've learned over the past 2 weeks? I've learned that I'm a coward. I've learned that I chose safety over courage, strategy over love. I've learned that I let my children suffer because I was too afraid to act. This is very touching, but I'm not finished." Marcus's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. "I'm done being afraid. I'm done waiting for the perfect moment. I'm done letting people like you and your sister hold power over my family. So what are you going to do? Fight me? No. I'm going to walk back into that house and tell Victoria exactly who I am. I'm going to play those recordings in front of her face, and I'm going to watch her world collapse. She'll fight back. She'll destroy you. She can try." Marcus smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant smile. "But I built a billion-dollar company from nothing. I've faced hostile takeovers, corporate espionage, betrayal by people I trusted. Your sister is a con artist with a gambling problem and a criminal father. She's not even in my league." Brandon's expression shifted from confident to uncertain. He hadn't expected this. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Marcus turned toward the door. "You have 2 choices, Brandon. You can run right now before the police arrive, or you can stay and go down with your sister. I really don't care which one you choose." He walked out of the pool house without looking back. Behind him, Brandon sat alone in the darkness, his whiskey, forgotten, his plans crumbling around him. Marcus strode across the lawn toward the main house. His heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. No more waiting. No more watching. No more gathering evidence. It ended now. He reached the back door and pushed it open. Victoria stood in the living room, still facing off against Destiny. Emma was hiding behind the maid's legs. Noah was sitting on the bottom step of the staircase, his face streaked with tears. Everyone turned when Marcus entered. "Who the hell are you?" Victoria demanded. "This is a private residence. Get out before I call the police." Marcus reached up and slowly peeled off the fake beard. The room went silent. Victoria's face went white. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "Hello, Victoria," Marcus said calmly. "Surprise. That's not... You were in Singapore." "I was never in Singapore. I've been here the whole time. Watching, listening, recording." Victoria's eyes darted around the room, searching for escape, finding none. "I don't know what you think you heard, but..." "I heard everything." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Would you like to listen?" He pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the room, clear and damning. "Fear works better than love. Those brats will be so well trained they won't dare say a word against me." "That's out of context. I was joking. Marcus played another recording. "The life insurance alone is worth 30 million. We're talking 9 figures, Brandon. Maybe 10. Victoria lunged for the phone. Marcus sidestepped easily, and she stumbled past him, crashing into the bar cart. "It's over, Victoria. The police have copies of these recordings. My lawyers have copies. By tonight, everyone will know exactly who you are." "You can't do this. You can't..." Victoria's voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. "We had a deal. We were going to be married. You can't just throw that away because of some misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Marcus walked toward his children, and Destiny stepped aside to let him pass. He knelt down and gathered Emma and Noah into his arms. "You choked my daughter. You starved my son. You planned to kill me and steal everything I have. That's not a misunderstanding. That's evil." I wouldn't." "Marcus, please." Victoria's tone shifted, becoming soft and pleading. "I love you. I love these children. Whatever you think you heard, it wasn't real. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed. I said things I didn't mean." "Save it for the judge." "Marcus, please." Victoria fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "I'll get help. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just give me another chance. Don't throw away what we have." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, at the tears that seemed so real, at the fear that was definitely genuine, at the woman he had almost married, almost trusted with his children's lives. "Get out of my house. Marcus, get out of my house or I will have you removed by force." Victoria's expression changed. The tears dried up. The pleading tone vanished. What remained was pure hatred. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I'll drag you through every court in California. I'll tell everyone what you did, spying on me and trapping me, violating my privacy. I'll make sure those children know exactly what kind of father they have. Do your worst." Marcus stood up, his children still clinging to him. "But do it somewhere else. You have 15 minutes to pack your things and leave. And if I ever see you near my family again, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison." Victoria stared at him with murder in her eyes. Then she turned and stormed toward the stairs, her heels stabbing the hardwood with each step. Marcus watched her go, then looked at Destiny. "Thank you," he said quietly. Destiny shook her head. "Don't thank me yet. She's not gone, and people like her don't give up easily." "I know. But whatever comes next, we face it together. Together. If you're willing." Destiny looked at Emma and Noah, still wrapped around their father, like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. Then she looked at Marcus, at the exhaustion and fear and desperate hope in his eyes. "I'm willing," she said finally. "But I swear to God, if you ever lie to me again..." "I won't. I promise." "Good." She glanced toward the stairs where Victoria's footsteps echoed on the upper floor. "Now let's make sure she actually leaves. I don't trust that woman as far as I can throw her." They waited together in the living room, Marcus holding his children, Destiny standing guard. 15 minutes passed. 20. 30. Finally, Victoria descended the stairs with a single suitcase. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled, her face set in a mask of cold fury. "This isn't over," she said as she passed Marcus. "Yes, it is." She walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped out into the California sunshine. Her driver was waiting by her car, looking confused by the sudden departure. The door closed behind her. Silence fell over the house. And then, for the first time in weeks, Emma Wellington smiled. "She's really gone, Daddy. She's really gone, sweetheart. And she's not coming back. She's never coming back." Emma burst into tears, but these were different tears. These were tears of relief, of release, of overwhelming joy. Noah, sensing the shift in emotion, began to laugh. His small, delighted laughter echoed through the house, filling the spaces that had been silent for so long. Marcus held his children and wept. It was over. The nightmare was finally over. But as Destiny looked out the window, watching Victoria's car disappear down the driveway, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Victoria was on her phone, talking to someone, smiling. The car turned the corner and vanished from sight, and somewhere in the depths of the house a phone began to ring. The phone kept ringing. Marcus handed Noah to Destiny and walked toward the sound. It was coming from Victoria's study, the room she had claimed as her own the week after she moved in. He pushed open the door and found her laptop still open on the desk. The phone beside it was a burner, cheap plastic, the kind drug dealers used in movies. It vibrated against the mahogany surface, the caller ID showing only one word: Brandon. Marcus answered. "Victoria, we have a problem. Wellington knows about—" "Victoria's gone," Marcus said calmly. "But I'm sure you already knew that." Silence on the other end. Then a laugh, low and bitter. "Well, well." The billionaire finally grew a spine. "Where are you, Brandon?" "Somewhere you'll never find me. But don't worry, Mr. Wellington. This isn't over. My sister might be out of your house, but she's not out of your life. Not by a long shot." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." Brandon's voice hardened. "You think you've won? You've just made the biggest mistake of your life. Victoria has connections you can't imagine. Lawyers, judges, reporters who owe her favors. By tomorrow morning, your name will be dragged through every tabloid in California. Let them print whatever they want. I have the recordings." "Recordings can be challenged. Experts can claim they're doctored. And while you're fighting that battle in court, Victoria will be filing for custody." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "She has no legal right to my children." "Not yet, but she will. You see, Mr. Wellington, you made a critical error. You proposed to her. You introduced her to your children as their new mother. You gave her standing in their lives. And California courts love stability for children. They hate disruption. She abused them. I have proof. You have recordings that she'll claim were manipulated by a jealous ex-fiancé. You have the testimony of a maid who was fired for insubordination. You have nothing that a good lawyer can't tear apart." Marcus gripped the phone so hard the plastic creaked. "What do you want, Brandon?" "What I've always wanted. Money. But the price just went up." Brandon paused dramatically. 20 million. Wire it to an offshore account within 48 hours and we disappear forever. Refuse and we destroy you. I already told you no. That was when the price was 5 million. Things have changed. Victoria is angry now. And when my sister gets angry, people get hurt. Are you threatening my children? I'm stating a fact. Victoria knows things about you, Mr. Wellington. Things you probably don't want made public. The depression after your wife died. The therapist you saw for 6 months. The prescription for anxiety medication that you renewed 3 times. Marcus felt his stomach drop. How did they know about that? None of that is illegal. No. But it raises questions about your mental fitness as a parent. Add that to Victoria's tearful testimony about your erratic behavior. your paranoid accusations, your elaborate scheme to entrap her, and suddenly you don't look like a protective father. You look like a man having a breakdown. No court would believe that. Are you willing to bet your children on it? The question hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Marcus closed his eyes, thinking about Emma's smile when Victoria finally left, about Noah's laughter echoing through the house, about all the healing that still needed to happen. Could he risk losing them again? I need time to think. You have 48 hours. I'll send wire instructions to this phone. Brandon's voice turned mocking. And Mr. Wellington. Don't bother trying to trace this call. I'm not an amateur. The line went dead. Marcus stood alone in Victoria's study, surrounded by evidence of her deception. Designer notebooks filled with financial calculations. Photographs of wealthy men with notes about their net worth. A folder labeled Wellington, containing detailed information about his assets, his habits, his vulnerabilities. She had been planning this for months, maybe longer. He walked back to the living room, where Destiny was still holding Noah. Emma had curled up on the couch, exhausted from the emotional upheaval. What happened? Destiny asked quietly. Who was on the phone? Brandon, Victoria's brother. What did he want? $20 million. Or he and Victoria go public with everything they know about me. Destiny's eyes widened. Blackmail. Extortion. They're threatening to file for custody claim I'm mentally unfit, drag my family through the courts for years. Can they do that? I don't know. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. I need to call David, figure out our legal options. And if there aren't any... Marcus looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. At his son nestled in Destiny's arms, like he belonged there. Then I pay them. Whatever it takes to keep my children safe. No, Destiny's voice was firm. You don't give in to people like this. They'll take your money and come back for more. That's how blackmailers work. You have a better idea. Yeah, I do. We fight back. Marcus studied her face, seeing the determination there. How? Victoria's not as smart as she thinks she is. She left in a hurry, right? Didn't have time to clear everything out. Destiny gestured toward the study. There might be something in there we can use. Evidence of other crimes, other victims, something that gives us leverage. She'll claim I planted it. Not if someone else finds it first. Destiny carefully handed Noah to Marcus. Give me an hour. Let me search that study. If there's anything useful, I'll find it. You do that after everything. I told you, Mr. Wellington, I'm not leaving until those children are safe. And right now, they're not safe. Victoria is still out there, still planning, still dangerous. We need to stop her for good. Marcus nodded slowly. 1 hour, but be careful. If there's anything illegal in there, we need to document it properly. I know what I'm doing. Destiny headed toward the study, then paused at the door. And Marcus, call your lawyer. Tell him everything. We're going to need all the help we can get. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of phone calls and frantic searching. David Carter arrived within 40 minutes, his face grim. This is bad, he said after Marcus explained the situation. Brandon's right about one thing. Custody battles in California favor stability. If Victoria can convince a judge that she was a positive presence in the children's lives, she abused them. And you have recordings that prove it. But you also have a history of mental health treatment, a recent broken engagement, and a bizarre undercover operation that any lawyer will spin as paranoid behavior. So, what do I do? Right now, document everything. Every interaction with Victoria, every threat from Brandon, every piece of evidence Destiny finds. Build such an overwhelming case that no judge can ignore it. And if that's not enough? David was quiet for a moment. Then we consider other options. What other options? Victoria and Brandon are con artists. They've done this before. If we can find their previous victims, get them to testify, establish a pattern of behavior, that could take months. Which is why we need to start now. In the study, Destiny was methodically working through Victoria's belongings. She had already found 3 burner phones, a ledger of expenses that didn't match any legitimate income, and a stack of credit cards in different names. But it was the laptop that yielded the real treasure. Victoria had been careless. Or maybe just arrogant. She had saved everything: emails, photos, financial records, all organized in neat folders with helpful labels. Destiny opened a folder called Previous Projects and felt her stomach turn. There were 6 names, 6 men, each with a subfolder containing photographs, financial information, and detailed notes about their psychological vulnerabilities. One name jumped out at her: Robert Chen. The notes beside his name read, "Successful extraction, $2.3 million. Currently hospitalized. No longer a threat." Hospitalized. Destiny pulled up the attached documents. News articles about a San Francisco businessman who had suffered a nervous breakdown after his fiancée left him. Medical records showing a suicide attempt. Legal filings for bankruptcy. Victoria hadn't just scammed this man, she had destroyed him, and there were 5 more just like him. "Marcus," Destiny called out, "you need to see this." He came running. David close behind. Destiny turned the laptop toward them. "She's done this before, 6 times that I can find. She targets wealthy men, gains their trust, and then bleeds them dry. If they fight back, she destroys them." Marcus stared at the screen, his face pale. "Robert Chen. I know that name. He was in my industry. Tech investor. I heard he had some kind of breakdown, lost everything." It wasn't a breakdown. It was Victoria. Destiny pointed to another folder. "Look at this. She kept receipts for a private investigator she hired to dig up dirt on him. Medical records, therapy notes, prescription information. Everything she's threatening to use against you, she used against him first." David leaned closer, his lawyer's mind already working. "This is a pattern of criminal behavior. Fraud, extortion, possibly conspiracy to commit psychological harm. If we can get Robert Chen to testify—" "He tried to kill himself," Destiny interrupted. "You think he wants to relive that trauma?" "He might, if it means stopping her from hurting someone else." Marcus was scrolling through the other files now. James Morrison, divorced businessman from Seattle. William Park, widower from Los Angeles. His voice cracked. "She targets widowers. Men who've lost their wives. She knows they're vulnerable." "That's how she found you," David said quietly. "She didn't find me. We met at a charity event. She spilled wine on my shirt, apologized, offered to have it cleaned." Marcus laughed bitterly. "It felt like fate. Like maybe God was giving me a second chance." "It was a setup," Destiny said. "Look at this email. She and Brandon planned the entire thing weeks in advance. They researched the charity, found out you'd be attending, and choreographed the accidental meeting." Marcus's hands curled into fists. "I'm going to destroy her." "No," David said firmly. "The law is going to destroy her. We take this evidence to the police, get an emergency restraining order, and file charges for fraud and extortion. That takes time. Brandon gave me 48 hours. Then we work fast." David pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Detective Morrison at LAPD. She specializes in white-collar crime. I've worked with her before." "What about the children?" Destiny asked. "If Victoria knows we're going to the police, she might try something desperate." "I'll hire security," Marcus said. "Armed guards 24 hours a day until this is over." "That's not what I mean." Destiny lowered her voice. "Those kids have been through hell. They watched their stepmother get exposed as a monster. They saw you pull off a mask and become their father again. Now there are going to be police lawyers, maybe reporters." She shook her head. "They need stability, normalcy, not more chaos." "What are you suggesting?" "Let me take care of them while you deal with this. Keep them in their routine as much as possible. School meals, bedtime stories. Let them feel safe while you fight the war." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had known his children for barely a month. This stranger who had risked everything to protect them. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you care so much?" Destiny was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My grandmother raised me. My mother was not around. Drugs, bad relationships, the usual story. But my grandmother made sure I never felt unloved. She worked 3 jobs, slept 4 hours a night, and still found time to read me bedtime stories." She paused, her eyes distant. "When I was 7, Child Protective Services came to take me away. Some neighbor had reported my grandmother's apartment as unfit for children. The caseworker didn't see my grandmother's love. She saw a cramped space and an old woman. She saw poverty. What happened? My grandmother fought. She hired a lawyer she couldn't afford, went to court, proved that she was a fit guardian. It took 6 months and nearly broke her financially. But she won." Destiny looked at Emma, still sleeping on the couch. "I know what it feels like to be a child, caught in adult battles. I know what it feels like to wonder if the people who love you can actually protect you. And I know that sometimes the best thing an adult can do is just be there. Be steady. Be safe." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been frozen since Sarah died. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won." David returned from his phone call, his expression tense. "Detective Morrison is on her way. She wants to see the evidence in person, but Marcus, I have to warn you. The moment we involve the police, this becomes public. Victoria will know we're coming after her." "Good. Let her know." "That's not the smart play. If she panics, she might accelerate whatever plan she has." "She's already panicking. That's why Brandon called with the blackmail demand." Marcus shook his head. "No more hiding. No more waiting. We hit her with everything we have right now before she has a chance to recover." The phone in the study buzzed. A text message from Brandon. "Clock is ticking, Mr. Wellington. 45 hours remaining. Have you made a decision?" Marcus typed back. "Yes, go to hell." He blocked the number and handed the phone to David. "Add this to the evidence." The detective arrived at 7:30 that evening. Detective Sarah Morrison was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for being relentless. She spent 2 hours going through the evidence on Victoria's laptop. When she was finished, she looked at Marcus with something approaching admiration. "In 20 years of investigating white-collar crime, I've never seen documentation this complete." Victoria Sinclair essentially kept a diary of her crimes. Will it be enough to arrest her? More than enough. We're talking multiple counts of fraud, extortion, identity theft, and possibly accessory to psychological abuse. Morrison paused. "But there's a complication." "What kind of complication?" "Victoria Sinclair doesn't legally exist. The name is an alias. We don't know her real identity, which means we don't know where she might run to. Her maiden name is Morrison. Victoria Morrison. Her father is Harold Morrison, serving time for running a Ponzi scheme. That helps, but we still need to find her before we can arrest her." Morrison stood up. "I'm issuing an APB tonight. Her car, her known associates, any property in her name. We'll find her." "And Brandon?" "Same. They're both wanted for questioning." After the detective left, Marcus found himself alone with Destiny in the living room. The children had been put to bed hours ago, exhausted from the day's events. "You should get some rest," Destiny said. "Tomorrow's going to be another long day." "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see Emma's face when Victoria was choking her." Marcus's voice broke. "I was right there, Destiny. 20 feet away. And I just watched. You were gathering evidence. I was being a coward, hiding behind a disguise while my children suffered. You were being a father who wanted to protect his kids in the long term. Sometimes the right choice doesn't feel right in the moment. Does it feel right now?" Destiny was quiet for a moment. "It feels like the beginning of something, not the end." "What do you mean?" Victoria is still out there. So is Brandon. The police are looking, but they haven't found them yet. And people like that don't just give up. They come back. They always come back. So what do? We stay vigilant. We protect those children. And we wait. Marcus nodded slowly. He walked to the window and looked out at the darkness beyond. Somewhere out there, Victoria was planning her next move. Brandon was calculating his next scheme. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. But this time, Marcus wasn't hiding. This time, he was ready. The night passed slowly. Marcus dozed on the couch, waking every hour to check on the children. Emma slept peacefully, her nightmares temporarily banished by the knowledge that her father was home. Noah clutched his teddy bear, the one Victoria had thrown away weeks ago, and Destiny had secretly retrieved. At 3 a.m, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from David. Police found Victoria's car, abandoned at LAX. She may have fled the country. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that she was gone, dread that she might return. He typed back, "What about Brandon?" "No sign of him. Be careful." Marcus set down the phone and walked to the window. The security guards David had arranged were visible at the gate, 2 men in dark suits with military postures. The house was as safe as it could be. But something still felt wrong. He found Destiny in the kitchen, making coffee despite the late hour. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "Victoria fled the country. The police found her car at the airport." "That should be good news." "It should be, but Brandon is still out there." Destiny handed him a cup of coffee. "You think he'll try something?" "I think he's got nothing left to lose. Victoria was the face of the operation. Without her, he's just a con man with a criminal record and a grudge. Desperate people do desperate things." "Exactly." They stood in silence, drinking their coffee, watching the first hints of dawn appear on the horizon. "My grandmother used to say that trouble comes in threes," Destiny said. "First Victoria's abuse, then the blackmail. There's still one more thing coming. You believe that. I believe in being prepared." She set down her cup. "I'm going to check on the children." She walked toward the stairs, and Marcus watched her go. This woman who had appeared in his life by accident had become essential to his family's survival. He didn't know what that meant yet. He didn't know what any of it meant. But he was starting to hope. Destiny climbed the stairs to the children's rooms, her footsteps quiet on the carpet. She checked on Noah first, finding him still sleeping peacefully. Then she walked to Emma's room. The door was closed. That was wrong. Destiny always left it open a crack so Emma could see the hallway nightlight. She pushed the door open slowly, her heart already beginning to race. Emma's bed was empty. The window was open. And written on the mirror in red lipstick were 3 words that made Destiny's blood run cold. "I always win." She screamed. Marcus heard her scream and sprinted up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. He burst into Emma's room and saw what Destiny had seen. The empty bed, the open window, the message on the mirror. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He ran to the window and looked out. The security guards were still at the gate, still watching the front of the house, but the back of the property was dark and unprotected. "She came through the back," Destiny said, her voice shaking. "Over the wall through the garden. The same garden you were pretending to tend for 2 weeks. Marcus was already calling the police. "This is Marcus Wellington. My daughter has been kidnapped. Victoria Sinclair, the woman you're looking for. She has my daughter." The next hour was chaos. Police cars filled the driveway. Detectives swarmed the property. A helicopter circled overhead, its searchlight cutting through the darkness. But Emma was gone. Marcus sat on the couch holding Noah in his arms, while detectives asked him questions he couldn't answer. Where would Victoria take her? Did she have any known properties? Was there anyone else who might be helping her? He didn't know. He didn't know anything except that his daughter was in the hands of a monster and it was his fault. If he hadn't played the hero, if he had just paid the blackmail, if he had kept his family safe instead of seeking justice. "This isn't your fault," Destiny said, reading his thoughts. "She came back because I provoked her. I sent that text to Brandon. Go to hell. I practically dared her to do something. You couldn't have known she would do this." "I should have known. I should have anticipated every possible move. That's what I do. That's what I've done my entire career." Marcus's voice cracked. "But when it mattered most, I failed." Detective Morrison approached her face grim. "We've got a lead. A taxi driver picked up a woman and a child near your property about an hour before we arrived. The description matches Victoria and Emma." "Where did he take them?" "A motel in Burbank. We've got units en route now." Marcus stood up. "I'm coming with you." "Mr. Wellington, I understand your concern, but this is a police matter. You need to stay here." "That's my daughter. I'm not staying anywhere." Morrison hesitated, then nodded. "Stay behind the line. Don't interfere. And if I tell you to back off, you back off." "Understood." Destiny stepped forward. "I'm staying with Noah." "But Marcus." She grabbed his arm. "Bring her home." "I will. I promise." 20 minutes later, Marcus was crouched behind a police car in a rundown motel parking lot. The building was 2 stories, maybe 20 rooms, the kind of place that rented by the hour and didn't ask questions. Victoria's taxi had dropped her at room 14. The curtains were drawn, but a faint light was visible through the gaps. "Tactical team is in position," Morrison murmured into a radio. "On my mark." Marcus's heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. His daughter was 50 feet away, held captive by a woman who had already proven she was capable of violence. If anything happened to Emma, he would never forgive himself. The radio crackled. "All units ready." Morrison raised her hand. 3, 2, 1, go. The door to room 14 exploded inward. Officers in tactical gear poured through shouting commands. "Police, get on the ground! Get on the ground, now!" Marcus heard screaming. A woman's voice, Victoria, then a child's voice, Emma. "Daddy! Daddy, help!" He was running before he knew it, ignoring Morrison's shouts, pushing past officers, bursting into the motel room. Victoria was on her knees, hands behind her head, a tactical officer pressing her into the floor. But Marcus didn't care about her. Emma was huddled in the corner of the room, her arms wrapped around herself, her face streaked with tears. "Emma," Marcus breathed. "Daddy." She ran to him and he caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground, holding her so tight he thought he might never let go. "It's okay, baby. I'm here. Daddy's here." "She said you weren't coming. She said nobody was coming. She said I was going to live with her forever." "Never. That's never going to happen. You're safe now." Behind him, Victoria was being dragged to her feet. Her perfect mask had completely shattered. Her hair was wild, her makeup smeared, her eyes blazing with hatred. "This isn't over, Marcus," she spat. "You think you've won. You've won nothing. I'll get out. I'll find the best lawyers. I'll—" "Get her out of here," Morrison ordered. The officers dragged Victoria toward the door. She fought them every step, screaming threats and obscenities. At the threshold, she stopped struggling just long enough to look back at Marcus. "You destroyed my life," she said quietly. "So I'm going to destroy yours. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. I will never stop." Then she was gone, shoved into the back of a police car. Marcus stood in the doorway of the motel room, his daughter in his arms, watching the flashing lights disappear into the night. Victoria Sinclair was in custody. Emma was safe. The nightmare was finally over. But her words echoed in his mind like a prophecy. "I will never stop." And somewhere deep in his gut, Marcus knew she meant it. The drive home from the motel took 45 minutes, but it felt like hours. Emma fell asleep in Marcus's arms before they even left the parking lot, her small body finally surrendering to exhaustion. He held her the entire way, watching the streetlights flicker across her tear-stained face, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. She was safe. That was all that mattered. When they pulled into the driveway at 4:30 in the morning, Destiny was waiting at the door with Noah in her arms. The moment Marcus stepped out of the car, she saw Emma's sleeping form and pressed her hand to her mouth. "Thank God," she whispered. "Thank God." Marcus carried Emma inside and up the stairs to her bedroom. He laid her gently on the bed, pulled the covers up to her chin, and sat beside her in the darkness. "Daddy?" Her voice was small, barely awake. "I'm here, sweetheart." "Is the bad lady gone?" "Yes, she's gone. The police have her." "Forever?" Marcus hesitated. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise that Victoria would never hurt her again. But he had made too many promises he couldn't keep. "For a very long time," he said finally. "And I'm going to make sure she never gets near you again." Emma's eyes closed, and within seconds, she was asleep. Marcus stayed for another hour, watching her breathe, making sure she was real. Then he walked downstairs to find Destiny sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. "She's okay," he said. "Physically, at least. And emotionally. That's going to take time." Destiny nodded slowly. "I should have checked on her sooner. If I had looked in her room earlier, maybe—" "Don't." Marcus sat down beside her. "This isn't your fault. None of it is your fault. I was supposed to be protecting them. That was my job. Your job was being a maid. Everything else, the protection, the love, the courage, that was you. That was who you are." Destiny looked at him, her eyes glistening. "I've never been so scared in my life. When I saw that empty bed, that message on the mirror." "I know. I thought we had lost her. I thought Victoria had won." "She didn't win. She's never going to win." They sat in silence as the first light of dawn crept through the windows. The house was quiet. The children were safe. But the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on both of them like a physical force. "What happens now?" Destiny asked. "Now we fight. Victoria is going to have a bail hearing. Her lawyers are going to try to get her out. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. And Brandon? Still missing. The police are looking, but he could be anywhere. So it's not over." "No, not yet." The next 3 days were a blur of legal meetings and police interviews. David Carter worked around the clock building the case against Victoria. The evidence from her laptop was overwhelming 6 previous victims, detailed plans for fraud and extortion, documentation of everything she had done. But Victoria had resources they hadn't anticipated. On Tuesday morning, Marcus received a call from David that made his blood run cold. "She's out," David said flatly. "What do you mean she's out?" Bail was set at $2 million. Someone posted it anonymously. She walked out of jail an hour ago. Marcus gripped the phone so hard his knuckles turned white. "How is that possible? She kidnapped my daughter." The charge was filed as custodial interference, not kidnapping. Her lawyer argued that as your fiancée, she had a reasonable expectation of a relationship with the children. That's insane. That's the law. She's out on bail with an ankle monitor and a restraining order. She can't come within 500 feet of you or the children. An ankle monitor. That's it. She'll cut it off and disappear. If she does, she forfeits the bail money and becomes a fugitive. The police are watching her. They were watching her before. That didn't stop her from climbing through my daughter's window. David was quiet for a moment. There's something else. Victoria's lawyer filed a motion this morning. What kind of motion? A custody petition. She's claiming that during your engagement you verbally agreed to make her the children's legal guardian in the event of your death. She wants visitation rights pending a full custody hearing. Marcus felt the world tilt sideways. She's trying to get access to my children, after everything she did. She's claiming the abuse allegations are fabricated, that you staged the recordings to frame her, that Destiny is a disgruntled employee you paid to lie. Nobody will believe that. You'd be surprised what people believe when a good lawyer tells them to. Marcus hung up the phone and stood motionless in the middle of his office. Victoria was free. She was coming for his children through the courts. And somewhere out there, Brandon was still lurking, waiting for his chance to strike. He found Destiny in the kitchen, helping Emma with her breakfast. Noah was in his high chair, happily smashing a banana with his fists. "We need to talk," Marcus said quietly. Destiny saw his expression and immediately turned to Emma. "Sweetie, can you watch your brother for a minute? I need to speak with your daddy." "Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Just grown-up stuff." Emma nodded solemnly and turned her attention to Noah. Destiny followed Marcus into the hallway. "Victoria made bail," he said without preamble. "She's filing for custody." Destiny's face went pale. She can't possibly think. She thinks whatever gets her what she wants, and right now she wants to hurt me. Taking my children is the best way to do that. The courts won't give her custody. Not after everything that's happened. Maybe not. But she can drag this out for months. Years. Keep us in court. Keep the children in limbo. Keep us all living in fear. So what do we do? Marcus looked at her, and something in his expression made her take a step back. "I need to know something," he said. "And I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. When this goes to court, Victoria's lawyers are going to attack your credibility. They're going to dig into your past, your finances, everything. Is there anything they could use against you?" Destiny's jaw tightened. "You're asking if I have skeletons in my closet. I'm asking if I need to prepare for anything." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "When I was 19, I got arrested, shoplifting. I was stupid. I was broke and I made a bad choice. The charges were dropped because it was my first offense, but there's still a record." "Anything else?" "I had a boyfriend who sold drugs. I didn't know until the police raided his apartment. I was there. I got questioned, but I was never charged." "Is that it?" "That's it." Destiny crossed her arms. "I'm not proud of my past, Marcus, but I'm not ashamed of it either. I grew up in Compton. I made mistakes. I learned from them. I'm not judging you. Aren't you? Because it sounds like you're asking if I'm good enough to stand next to you in court. I'm asking because I need to protect you. Victoria's lawyers will use anything they can find to discredit you. If I know what's coming, I can prepare." Destiny studied his face. "And what about you? Are there things in your past that could hurt us? The mental health treatment, the anxiety medication, they'll use all of it. Then we're both damaged. That should make us even." Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. "Destiny, I need to ask you something else." "What?" "When this goes to trial, when the lawyers and the judges and the reporters are all watching, I need someone by my side, someone who can testify to what Victoria did, someone who saw everything." "You want me to testify? I want you to be more than that. I want you to be part of this family, officially." Destiny stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that my children love you. I trust you more than anyone I've ever met. And if you're willing, I want you to stay. Not as a maid, not as an employee, as family." "Marcus, we barely know each other." "I know. But I've learned more about who you are in the past month than I learned about Victoria in a year. You're brave, you're kind, you're real." He took a step closer. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give, but I'm asking you to stay. Please." Destiny was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'll stay, but I need you to understand something. Anything. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for them." She nodded toward the kitchen where Emma and Noah were laughing about something. Those children are the only reason I'm still here. If you hurt them, if you fail them again, I will walk away, and I will take them with me. You have my word. Your word. She laughed softly. I've heard a lot of words from a lot of men. Words are cheap, Marcus. Then watch my actions. Judge me by what I do. I will. Believe me, I will. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. David Carter spent every day preparing Marcus for the battle ahead, coaching him on how to answer questions, how to stay calm, how to project the image of a stable, loving father. But nothing could prepare him for Victoria's counterattack. 3 days before the hearing, a story appeared in the Los Angeles Tribune. The headline read, "Tech billionaire hired Maid to frame Fiancée in elaborate revenge scheme." The article painted Marcus as an unstable, paranoid man who had become obsessed with the idea that his fiancée was plotting against him. It described his undercover operation as disturbing and indicative of serious mental health issues. It quoted anonymous sources, claiming that Marcus had paid Destiny Johnson to fabricate evidence of abuse. By noon, the story had been picked up by every major news outlet in the country. Marcus's phone exploded with calls from reporters, investors, and board members. Wellington Tech's stock dropped 12% in a single day. 3 major clients announced they were reviewing their relationship with the company. And then the interview aired. Victoria Sinclair appeared on a primetime news program, her eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling with emotion. She described Marcus as a controlling, manipulative man who had turned the children against her because he couldn't accept that she was trying to discipline them. "I loved those children like they were my own," she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "And he destroyed our family because of his paranoid delusions." The interviewer leaned forward. "What about the recordings, the evidence of fraud on your laptop?" "All fabricated. He hired people to create those files. He hired an actress to pretend to be me on those recordings." "That's a serious allegation." "I know, and I'm prepared to prove it in court." Victoria looked directly into the camera. "Marcus Wellington is a dangerous man. I fear for those children every day they remain in his care." Marcus watched the interview from his living room, his hands shaking with rage. "She's good," David said quietly. "I'll give her that." "She's lying. Every word is a lie." "I know, but the public doesn't know that. And right now public opinion is shifting in her favor. So we fight back. We do our own interview. We tell the truth." "It's not that simple. Anything you say publicly can be used against you in court. And if you come across as defensive or angry, it only reinforces her narrative." "Then what do I do? Just sit here while she destroys me?" Destiny walked in from the kitchen. "No, you let me do it." Marcus turned. "What?" "I'll do the interview. I'll tell them what I saw, what really happened." "Destiny, you can't. Victoria's lawyers will tear you apart." "Let them try." Her eyes were fierce. "I was there, Marcus. I watched her abuse those children. I took a slap meant for Emma. I have nothing to hide and everything to gain." "She'll bring up your past. The arrest, the boyfriend." "So what? I made mistakes. I owned them. That's more than Victoria Sinclair can say." Destiny stepped closer. "You trusted me to protect your children. Now trust me to protect your family." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Make the call," he told David. "Set up the interview." The interview aired 2 days later, the night before the custody hearing. Destiny sat across from the same journalist who had interviewed Victoria, her posture straight, her expression calm. "Miss Johnson, you've been described as a disgruntled employee who was paid to fabricate evidence against Victoria Sinclair. What's your response to that?" "I was never paid anything except my regular salary, and I wasn't disgruntled. I was horrified." "Horrified by what?" "By what I saw Victoria do to those children. The hitting, the starving, the psychological torture." Destiny's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly in her lap. Emma Wellington is 6 years old. She used to flinch every time an adult raised their voice. She used to hide food under her bed because she didn't know when she'd be allowed to eat again. Victoria claims those allegations are fabricated. Then explain the bruises. Explain why a 2-year-old was afraid to speak in his own home. Explain why Emma asked me every night if the bad lady was going to hurt her again. Some would say you're just trying to protect your employer. Destiny leaned forward, her eyes blazing. My employer, Marcus Wellington, didn't hire me to be a witness. He hired me to clean his house. I chose to protect those children because it was the right thing to do. Because no child deserves to be abused. Because I couldn't stand there and do nothing. You took a blow meant for Emma during the confrontation with Victoria. Why? Because that's what you do when you love someone. You protect them, even if it costs you everything. The interview continued for another 20 minutes. By the end, Destiny had described every instance of abuse she had witnessed, every threat Victoria had made, every moment of fear those children had endured. When it was over, she walked out of the studio to find Marcus waiting by the car. How did I do? She asked. You were incredible. I was terrified. That's what made it real. He opened the car door for her. Thank you. For everything. We haven't won yet. No. But we're closer. The custody hearing began at 9 o'clock the next morning. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table with David Carter, his heart pounding with anticipation. Across the aisle, Victoria Sinclair sat with her team of expensive lawyers, her expression serene. The judge was a stern woman named Patricia Hardwick, known for her no-nonsense approach to family law cases. This hearing will determine whether Victoria Sinclair has standing to petition for visitation rights with the minor children, Emma and Noah Wellington. Judge Hardwick began. Mr. Carter, you may present your case. David stood. Your Honor, Victoria Sinclair has no legal relationship with these children. She was never married to Mr. Wellington. She was never granted any form of legal guardianship. Her claim is based entirely on a verbal agreement that Mr. Wellington categorically denies. And the evidence of abuse. We have extensive documentation, Your Honor. Recordings of Ms. Sinclair admitting to abusive behavior. Testimony from household staff. Medical records showing injuries consistent with physical abuse. Victoria's lawyer rose. Objection, Your Honor. Those recordings have not been authenticated. They could easily have been manipulated. We have expert witnesses prepared to testify to their authenticity, David countered. Judge Hardwick held up her hand. I'll hear the evidence before making any determinations. Continue. The morning was consumed by legal arguments and technical discussions. Experts testified about the recordings. Police officers described Victoria's arrest. Medical professionals detailed the injuries they had observed on the children. Through it all, Victoria maintained her composure, occasionally whispering to her lawyers, occasionally shaking her head in apparent disbelief. Then it was time for the testimonies. Destiny was called to the stand first. She walked to the witness box with her head held high, her eyes fixed straight ahead. Please, state your name and your relationship to the Wellington family, the judge instructed. My name is Destiny Johnson. I was hired as a housekeeper by the Wellington family approximately 2 months ago. And during your employment, did you witness any behavior by Victoria Sinclair that concerned you? Yes, Your Honor. I witnessed repeated instances of physical and emotional abuse directed at both children. Can you describe specific incidents? Destiny took a deep breath. On my 3rd day of employment, I saw Victoria grab Emma by the throat and shove her against the refrigerator. The child's head struck the metal hard enough to leave a bump. A murmur ran through the courtroom. On another occasion, I observed Victoria withholding food from both children as punishment. Emma was given a single piece of toast for breakfast. Noah received half a banana. Objection, Victoria's lawyer called. This is hearsay and inflammatory. I was an eyewitness, Destiny said calmly. There's nothing hearsay about it. Judge Hardwick nodded. Overruled. Continue, Miss Johnson. Destiny described incident after incident, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was recounting. She described the threats, the punishments, the constant atmosphere of fear that had pervaded the Wellington household. When she finished, Victoria's lawyer rose for cross-examination. Miss Johnson, isn't it true that you were arrested for shoplifting when you were 19 years old? Yes, the charges were dropped. And isn't it true that you were once associated with a known drug dealer? I dated someone who, without my knowledge, was involved in illegal activities. I was never charged with any crime. So you have a history of poor judgment and association with criminals. Destiny's eyes narrowed. I have a history of growing up poor in a tough neighborhood and making some mistakes along the way. But I also have a history of working hard, getting an education, and trying to make something of myself. What does Victoria Sinclair have? Your Honor. The lawyer protested. The witness is being argumentative. Miss Johnson, please limit yourself to answering the questions, Judge Hardwick said, but there was a hint of approval in her eyes. The cross-examination continued, but Victoria's lawyer couldn't shake Destiny's testimony. She had seen what she had seen. She had documented what she had documented, and no amount of legal maneuvering could change that. When Destiny stepped down from the stand, Marcus caught her eye and nodded. She had done everything they had asked and more. Then it was Victoria's turn. She walked to the witness box with the grace of a woman who had been performing her whole life. Her dress was modest. Her makeup understated her expression, one of wounded innocence. Miss Sinclair, can you explain your relationship with the Wellington children? Of course. Victoria's voice was soft, almost trembling. When I met Marcus, he was a broken man. His wife had died and he was struggling to raise 2 young children alone. I tried to help. I tried to be the mother those children needed. And the allegations of abuse. Completely false. A single tear rolled down Victoria's cheek. I was strict, yes. I believed in discipline, but I never hurt those children. I loved them. Then how do you explain the recordings? They were fabricated. Marcus hired people to create fake evidence because he was paranoid and controlling. He couldn't accept that I was trying to help him. And the kidnapping charge? I was trying to protect Emma. Marcus had become unstable. I feared for her safety in that house. I took her to a motel to keep her safe until I could figure out what to do. David Carter rose for cross-examination, his expression sharp. Miss Sinclair, you claim the recordings were fabricated, but forensic experts have testified that they are authentic. How do you explain that? They must be mistaken, or paid off. Paid off by whom? By Marcus. He's a billionaire. He can afford to buy anyone. I see. And the 6 other men documented in your laptop, the ones you allegedly defrauded before Marcus, were they all part of this conspiracy too? Victoria's composure flickered. I don't know what you're talking about. Robert Chen, James Morrison, William Park. Shall I continue? Those files were planted. I never. Your own emails describe in detail how you plan to target these men. Your own handwriting appears in notebooks outlining your strategies. Are you saying someone forged all of this? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. David pulled a document from his folder. Your Honor, I'd like to submit a statement from Robert Chen, one of Victoria Sinclair's previous victims. He describes a pattern of behavior identical to what Marcus Wellington experienced. He lost his business, his savings, and nearly his life because of this woman. Objection. This is character assassination. It's evidence of a pattern, David countered. Evidence that this witness has made a career out of targeting vulnerable men and destroying their lives. Judge Hardwick studied the document. I'll allow it. Victoria's mask was cracking now. Her eyes darted around the courtroom searching for escape. Miss Sinclair, David continued, isn't it true that your real name is Victoria Morrison? That your father is currently serving a 12-year sentence for fraud? My father's crimes have nothing to do with me. Don't they? You learned from the best, didn't you? He taught you how to manipulate, how to deceive, how to destroy people for profit. I am not my father. No, you're worse. Because you target children. Victoria shot to her feet. I never hurt those children. They were spoiled, undisciplined brats who needed someone to teach them respect. The courtroom went silent. Victoria realized what she had said a moment too late. Her face went pale. No further questions, Your Honor, David said quietly. Judge Hardwick stared at Victoria for a long moment. Then she spoke. Miss Sinclair, I've heard enough. Your petition for visitation rights is denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for review of potential criminal charges, including child abuse, fraud, and perjury. Victoria's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a raised hand. This court finds that Marcus Wellington is a fit parent and that Victoria Sinclair poses a credible threat to the welfare of his children. A permanent restraining order will be issued effective immediately. She banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. Marcus sat frozen in his seat as the courtroom erupted around him. David was shaking his hand. Reporters were shouting questions. Victoria was being escorted out by security, her face a mask of fury. But all Marcus could see was Destiny standing by the door smiling at him. They had won. He pushed through the crowd and found her waiting in the hallway. It's over, she said softly. Not yet. Brandon is still out there. One thing at a time. She reached out and squeezed his hand. For now, let's just celebrate this. Marcus looked at her. This woman who had risked everything for his children, who had stood up to Victoria Sinclair and refused to back down, who had become somehow the most important person in his world. Thank you, he said. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. They walked out of the courthouse together into the California sunshine. David was handling the reporters. The lawyers were filing the paperwork. Everything was falling into place. But as they reached the car, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your victory. Enjoy it while it lasts. I'm closer than you think. B. Marcus looked up, scanning the crowd outside the courthouse. Hundreds of faces, dozens of cameras. Anyone could be watching. Brandon was still out there. And this fight was far from over. Marcus showed the text to David the moment they reached the car. He's watching us, Marcus said. Right now. He could be anywhere in that crowd. David studied the message, his face grim. I'll contact Detective Morrison. We need to increase security. Security didn't stop Victoria from taking Emma. What makes you think it'll stop Brandon? Because now we know what we're dealing with. David looked up from the phone. Victoria was the face. Brandon is the muscle. He's more dangerous, but he's also more reckless. Reckless people make mistakes. And if he makes a mistake with my children? David had no answer for that. They drove home in tense silence. Destiny sat in the back seat with Marcus, her hand resting on his arm. She hadn't said a word since he showed her the text, but her presence was enough. When they pulled into the driveway at 2:15 that afternoon, the security team was already in place. 6 men instead of 2. Armed guards at every entrance. Cameras covering every angle. It felt less like a home and more like a fortress. Emma and Noah were waiting inside with their nanny, a retired teacher named Mrs. Patterson, who had been vetted by 3 different agencies. Emma ran to Marcus the moment he walked through the door. Daddy, did we win? Marcus knelt and hugged her tight. We won, sweetheart. The judge said Victoria can never come near us again. Never ever. Never ever. But even as he said the words, he felt the weight of Brandon's text in his pocket. Never ever was a promise he couldn't guarantee. That night, after the children were in bed, Marcus found Destiny sitting alone in the kitchen. She was staring at her phone, her expression troubled. What is it? He asked. Someone's been calling me. Unknown number. No message. Just hangs up when I answer. Brandon. Probably. He's trying to scare us. Is it working? Destiny looked up at him, and for the first time since he'd known her, he saw real fear in her eyes. "Yes," she admitted. "It is." Marcus sat down across from her. "We can send you somewhere safe. A hotel, a friend's house, anywhere you want, until this is over. And leave those children? No. Destiny, if Brandon targets you, then I'll deal with it. I'm not running." Her voice hardened. "I've been running my whole life, Marcus. From poverty, from bad relationships, from a system that told me I'd never be anything. I'm done running. This is different. This is dangerous. Everything worth fighting for is dangerous." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm staying. End of discussion." Marcus looked at her, at the determination in her eyes, and felt something shift inside him. Something that had been dormant since Sarah died. "You're an incredible woman," he said quietly. "I'm a stubborn woman. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting." They sat in silence for a moment, hands still intertwined. Then Destiny's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time she answered. "Hello." Silence on the other end, then heavy breathing. "I know you're there, Brandon," Destiny said calmly. "And I know you're trying to scare me, but it's not going to work." More silence. Then a voice low and menacing. "You should have stayed out of this. You had no stake in this fight. Now you're going to lose everything." "I have nothing to lose." "Everyone has something to lose. Family, friends, the people you love." A pause. "I've been watching you, Destiny. I know where your grandmother lives. I know what church she goes to on Sundays. I know that every Tuesday she visits your cousin's grave at the cemetery." Destiny's face went pale. "If anything happens to her—" "Nothing will happen, as long as you cooperate. What do you want?" "I want you to disappear. Leave the Wellington house. Cut all ties with Marcus, and make a public statement saying you lied about Victoria." "That's not going to happen." "Then your grandmother dies." The line went dead. Destiny sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Marcus was already on his feet. "What did he say?" "He threatened my grandmother." Her voice was hollow. "He knows where she lives. He knows her schedule. We need to call the police. And tell them what that a man I've never met made vague threats over the phone." Destiny shook her head. "By the time they investigate, it could be too late." "Then what do we do?" Destiny stood up, her fear transforming into something harder. "We get to her first. Right now." They drove to Compton in Marcus's armored SUV, 2 security guards following in a separate vehicle. The streets were dark at 10:30 at night, the neighborhood quiet and sleeping. Destiny's grandmother lived in a small house on a corner lot, the same house where Destiny had grown up. The lights were off when they pulled up. "Wait here," Destiny said, opening the door. "I'm coming with you." "No. If something's wrong, I don't want you walking into it." Before Marcus could argue, she was out of the car and running toward the house. He watched as she knocked on the door, waited, knocked again. No answer. Destiny tried the handle. Locked. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Marcus could see her pacing on the porch, the phone pressed to her ear. Then her posture changed. Her shoulders sagged with relief. She walked back to the car and climbed in. "She's fine. She's at my aunt's house for a birthday party. Been there all evening." "Thank God. I'm moving her, tonight. To my aunt's permanently, at least until this is over." "Whatever you need, whatever it costs." Destiny looked at him. "You'd do that for someone you've never met. She's your grandmother. That makes her family." Something flickered in Destiny's eyes. Something soft and vulnerable. "Nobody's ever said that to me before." "Then you've been around the wrong people." They drove to Destiny's aunt's house, where a surprised but grateful grandmother was quickly packed and relocated to a secure location that David Carter arranged within the hour. By the time they returned to the Wellington mansion, it was past midnight. Marcus walked Destiny to her room, the guest suite she had been occupying since she agreed to stay as family. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow we figure out how to stop Brandon for good. And if we can't, we will, I promise." She looked at him for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She leaned forward and kissed him on the cheek. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Then she closed the door, leaving Marcus standing alone in the hallway, his heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. The next morning at 7:15, Marcus called an emergency meeting with his security team David Carter and Detective Morrison. They gathered in his office, faces grim. "Brandon Hayes is escalating," Detective Morrison said. "The threat against Miss Johnson's grandmother is serious, but it's also a sign of desperation." "Desperation makes people dangerous," David countered. "It also makes them sloppy. We've traced the calls to a burner phone purchased in cash 3 days ago. The signal bounced through multiple towers, but we've narrowed his location to a 5-mile radius in downtown LA. "That's a lot of territory," Marcus said. "It is, but we have something else." Morrison pulled out a photograph. This was taken by a traffic camera near the courthouse yesterday. The man in the corner partially obscured by the crowd. Our facial recognition software gives an 87% match to Brandon Hayes. Marcus studied the image. A man in a baseball cap face turned slightly away from the camera. But there was something familiar about the posture, the way he held himself. "That's him," Marcus said. "I recognize the way he stands." "How?" "I met him the night before I revealed myself to Victoria. He tried to blackmail me in the pool house." Morrison leaned forward. "You met him in person. Why didn't you mention this before?" "I was focused on Victoria. I thought once she was arrested, Brandon would disappear." "He didn't disappear. He regrouped." Morrison stood up. "We're going to set a trap. Brandon wants you scared and isolated. Instead, we give him a target he can't resist." "What kind of target?" "A meeting. You and Destiny in a public place without visible security. Make it look like you've let your guard down." "You want to use us as bait?" "I want to end this. Brandon won't stop until he's caught or until he gets what he wants. Since you're not going to give him what he wants, we need to catch him." Marcus looked at Destiny, who had been silent throughout the discussion. "It's your call," he said. "I won't ask you to do something you're not comfortable with." Destiny met his eyes. "I'm comfortable with ending this. Set the trap." The plan was set for Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Marcus and Destiny would meet at a cafe in Beverly Hills, a place with multiple exits and good sight lines for the undercover officers who would be scattered throughout the area. The next 2 days passed in tense preparation. Marcus rehearsed his movements, memorized exit routes, practiced staying calm under pressure. Destiny did the same, her determination never wavering. But on Thursday night, something unexpected happened. Emma had a nightmare. Marcus was still awake at 11:45, reviewing security protocols in his office, when he heard her scream. He ran to her room and found her sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy! Daddy! She came back!" He gathered her in his arms. "Who came back, sweetheart?" "The bad lady. She was in my dream. She said she was going to take me away again and never let me come home." "It was just a dream. Victoria can't hurt you anymore." "But what about the man? The scary man on the phone? I heard Miss Destiny talking about him. He wants to hurt us too." Marcus's heart sank. He had tried so hard to keep the children sheltered from this, but of course Emma had heard. Children always heard. "There's a man who's trying to scare us," Marcus admitted. "But the police are going to catch him. And until they do, we have lots of people protecting us. What if they can't protect us? What if he takes me like the bad lady did? That's never going to happen. I won't let it." Emma looked up at him, her eyes wide and searching. Promise? It was the second time she had asked him to promise something he wasn't sure he could guarantee. But this time Marcus didn't hesitate. "I promise. No one is ever going to take you away from me again." Emma wrapped her arms around his neck and held on tight. Marcus sat with her until she fell asleep, then carefully laid her back on her pillow. As he left the room, he found Destiny waiting in the hallway. "I heard," she said quietly. "She okay?" "For now. But we need to end this. Soon. Tomorrow." It ends tomorrow. Friday arrived with a weight that pressed down on everyone in the Wellington household. Marcus barely slept. Destiny paced the halls until dawn. Even the security team seemed on edge. At noon, Marcus sat the children down and explained that he and Miss Destiny had an important meeting and would be gone for a few hours. "Will you be safe?" Emma asked. "We'll have lots of people watching over us, just like you have people watching over you. I don't like it when you go away." "I know, sweetheart, but sometimes grown-ups have to do hard things to keep their families safe." Emma considered this. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small stone, smooth and polished. "This is my lucky rock. I found it in the garden. It keeps bad things away." She pressed it into Marcus's hand. "Take it, so you come back." Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. "I'll take it, and I'll bring it back to you tonight, I promise." At 2:30, Marcus and Destiny left the house in an unmarked car, deliberately avoiding the armored SUV. They drove to Beverly Hills, parked on a side street, and walked to the cafe. The place was crowded with the usual Friday afternoon crowd, people escaping work early, couples on dates, tourists taking photographs. Somewhere in that crowd, 6 undercover officers were watching, waiting. Marcus and Destiny took a table near the window in full view of the street. A waitress brought them coffee they didn't drink. "You think he'll show?" Destiny asked quietly. "Morrison is confident. She says men like Brandon can't resist the chance to gloat. And if she's wrong, then we try again, as many times as it takes." They waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. At 3:17, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text. "Nice try. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the cops wave to the woman in the blue dress? She's been staring at you for 10 minutes. Marcus's blood ran cold. He looked up and spotted the woman Brandon had described, an undercover officer who was supposed to be invisible. "He made us," Marcus said. "How? I don't know, but he's watching, right now." Destiny's hand found his under the table. "Then let's give him something to watch." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Destiny stood up and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" he called. "To end this." She pushed through the door and stepped onto the sidewalk. Marcus was right behind her. "Destiny, what are you doing?" "I'm done hiding. Done waiting. If Brandon wants me, he knows where to find me." She raised her voice, addressing the crowd. "Brandon Hayes, I know you're here. You want to talk? Come talk to my face." People stared, murmured, stepped back. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a man emerged from an alley across the street. Baseball cap, dark jacket. The same posture Marcus remembered from the pool house. Brandon Hayes walked toward them, his hands visible at his sides, a smile playing on his lips. "Well, well, the maid has some fire after all." Destiny didn't back down. "I'm done playing games. What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. Compensation for my sister. She's facing years in prison because of you. Because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. Your sister abused those children. She deserved worse than prison." Brandon's smile vanished. "My sister was running a business. Those brats were just collateral damage." Marcus stepped forward. "Where are the police?" "Taking their time, I imagine. I made sure they were occupied with a false alarm across town." Brandon pulled something from his jacket, a knife long and gleaming. "By the time they get here, this will be over." People screamed and scattered. The cafe emptied in seconds. Marcus put himself between Brandon and Destiny. "Put that down. Or what you'll call your lawyers." Brandon laughed. "I'm done negotiating. Victoria is going to rot in prison because of you. The least I can do is make sure you suffer before you die." He lunged forward. Marcus pushed Destiny aside and caught Brandon's arm before the knife could connect. They struggled, crashing into a parked car, rolling onto the pavement. Brandon was younger and stronger, but Marcus had something he didn't have. desperation. He thought about Emma's lucky rock in his pocket, about Noah's laughter, about everything he had almost lost. And he fought. He slammed Brandon's hand against the concrete until the knife clattered away. Then he pinned him to the ground, pressing his full weight down. "It's over," Marcus gasped. "It's over. It's never over." Brandon thrashed beneath him. "Victoria will get out eventually, and when she does, she's not getting out, and neither are you." Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Destiny grabbed the knife and kicked it away. Then she knelt beside Marcus, her hand on his back. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You're bleeding." Marcus looked down. A thin line of red was spreading across his shirt where Brandon's knife had grazed his side. He hadn't even felt it. "It's nothing, just a scratch." "That's a lot of blood for just a scratch." The police arrived in a wave of sirens and shouting. Officers swarmed the scene, pulling Brandon away, checking Marcus's wound, securing the area. Detective Morrison pushed through the chaos, her face a mixture of relief and frustration. The false alarm was a bomb threat at City Hall, drew half our force across town. "But you're here now. We got the notification from your security team when Brandon made contact. They had eyes on the whole thing." She looked at Brandon, now being shoved into the back of a patrol car. He's going away for a long time. Assault threatening a police officer, evading arrest. Add that to the conspiracy charges we're filing, and he's looking at 20 years minimum. And Victoria, her trial starts next month. With Brandon in custody and willing to testify against her to reduce his sentence, she'll be lucky to see daylight before she's 60. Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a weight he had been carrying for months. It's really over. It's really over. An ambulance arrived to treat Marcus's wound, which turned out to be superficial despite the blood. Destiny sat beside him while the paramedics worked her hand, never leaving his. "That was stupid," she said. "Heroic but stupid. You were the one who walked into the street and called him out. I was trying to flush him into the open. I didn't expect him to have a knife. Neither did I." They looked at each other, the adrenaline still pumping through their veins, the reality of what had happened slowly sinking in. "You saved my life," Destiny said quietly. "You saved my children. I'd say we're even." "That's not how it works." "Then how does it work?" Destiny was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. Not on the cheek this time. On the lips. It was brief, gentle, and it took Marcus completely by surprise. "That's how it works," she said. "In case you were wondering." Marcus stared at her, his heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "I was wondering," he admitted. "Good. Then we're on the same page." The paramedics finished bandaging his wound, and Marcus and Destiny walked back to the waiting car. The street was still filled with police vehicles and curious onlookers, but neither of them noticed. "The children are going to want to hear about this," Destiny said, Emma especially. "We'll tell them a simplified version. Bad man caught. Good guys won. Everyone lives happily ever after. Is that what happens happily ever after?" Marcus looked at her, at this woman who had walked into his life as a maid and become something so much more. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I'd like to find out." "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "That's pathetic." "Tell me about it." She smiled. "But I'll take it." They drove home as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The security team greeted them at the gate, their faces reflecting the relief everyone felt. Emma and Noah were waiting at the door, Mrs. Patterson hovering behind them. "Daddy." Emma ran to Marcus and hugged his legs. "You came back." "I promised I would." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small stone she had given him. "And I brought your lucky rock. It worked." Emma beamed. "I knew it would." Noah toddled over and raised his arms, demanding to be picked up. Marcus obliged, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his bandaged side. "Are you hurt?" Emma asked, her eyes widening. "Just a little scratch. Nothing to worry about. The bad man did it." The bad man is gone now. The police caught him. Emma considered this. Then she nodded, satisfied. Good. I hope he goes to jail forever. He probably will, sweetheart. Destiny knelt beside them, and both children immediately included her in the group hug. For a moment, the four of them stood there tangled together, a family forged through fire. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat. I'll just give you all some privacy. Thank you, Marcus said, for everything. Of course, Mr. Wellington. I'm just glad everyone's safe. She disappeared into the house, and Marcus looked at Destiny. So what happens now? Now we have dinner. We read bedtime stories. We let these children know they're safe. She met his eyes. And then when they're asleep, maybe we talk about what comes next. What do you think comes next? Destiny smiled, and it was the first truly carefree smile he had seen from her. I think that's up to us. That night, after dinner and bedtime stories and all the small rituals that make up family life, Marcus and Destiny sat together on the back terrace. The security lights cast long shadows across the garden, but for the first time, those shadows felt protective rather than threatening. My grandmother called, Destiny said. She wants to meet you. Should I be nervous? Terrified. She's scarier than Victoria and Brandon combined. Marcus laughed, and it felt good, natural, like something he had forgotten how to do. I'll take my chances. You'd better, because if you hurt me, she'll hunt you down. $1 billion or not. I believe you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one. Thank you, Marcus said finally. For what? For staying, for fighting, for being exactly who you are. He turned to look at her. I thought I knew what I was looking for when I put on that disguise. I thought I was looking for the truth about Victoria. But I found something else instead. What did you find? You. Destiny's eyes glistened. That might be the second most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Only second. The thing about finding out what happens next was pretty good. Marcus reached over and took her hand. It felt right, like something that had always been meant to happen. So, he said, what happens next? Destiny leaned her head against his shoulder. I guess we find out together. 6 months passed like water through open fingers. Victoria Sinclair's trial began on a gray Monday in November and lasted 3 weeks. Marcus sat in the front row every single day watching as the prosecution dismantled her carefully constructed lies piece by piece. The recordings played for the jury. The testimony from her previous victims echoed through the courtroom. Robert Chen, the man she had nearly destroyed 5 years ago, flew in from San Francisco to tell his story. And when the verdict came, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Guilty on all counts. Fraud. Extortion. Child abuse. Conspiracy. The judge sentenced Victoria to 32 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for 20. Brandon received 18 years in a separate trial. The siblings who had spent their lives preying on vulnerable people would spend the rest of their prime years behind bars. But the legal victory was only the beginning. The real work happened at home in the quiet moments between bedtime stories and breakfast conversations. Emma started seeing a child psychologist twice a week. At first, she refused to speak sitting in silence while Dr. Patterson waited patiently. But by the second month, she was opening up, drawing pictures of her feelings, learning to name the emotions that had been too big for her small heart. She's making remarkable progress, Dr. Patterson told Marcus during a parent consultation in late December. Children are resilient, but they need safety to heal. Whatever you're doing at home, keep doing it. What they were doing at home was simple. They were being a family. Destiny had officially moved out of the guest room and into the main house. Not into Marcus's bedroom, not yet. But into a space that was hers, a place where she belonged. She enrolled in UCLA's graduate program for child psychology, attending classes 3 days a week, while Mrs. Patterson watched the children. Marcus had insisted on paying her tuition. She had insisted on paying him back someday. "I'm not a charity case," she said during one of their now nightly conversations on the terrace. "I know. Consider it an investment." "In what?" "In the future." She had rolled her eyes, but she had also smiled. The children adored her. Noah called her Des because he couldn't quite manage the full name, and Emma had started asking for her opinion on everything from homework to hairstyles. "Miss Destiny, do you think unicorns are better than dragons? Dragons breathe fire. That's pretty cool. But unicorns are magical. Can't they both be magical?" Emma had considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. "I guess, but I still like unicorns better." These were the moments Marcus lived for now, the small, ordinary moments that Victoria had tried to destroy. But even in the midst of healing, shadows remained. One evening in January, Marcus came home to find Destiny sitting at the kitchen table, with tears streaming down her face. She was holding her phone, staring at the screen. "What happened?" he asked, immediately on alert. "My grandmother." She looked up, her eyes red. "She's in the hospital. Heart attack." Marcus was by her side in an instant. "Is she okay?" "They don't know yet. She's in surgery. Let's go, right now." They drove to the hospital in Compton, leaving Mrs. Patterson with the children and instructions to call if anything happened. The drive took 45 minutes, and Destiny didn't speak the entire way. She just held Marcus's hand and stared out the window. The hospital was old and crowded, nothing like the gleaming medical centers Marcus was used to. But the doctors were skilled, and the news they delivered at 11:30 that night was hopeful. "She's stable. The surgery went well. She'll need to take it easy for a few months, but she should make a full recovery." Destiny collapsed into Marcus's arms, sobbing with relief. "I can't lose her," she whispered. "She's all I have." "That's not true," Marcus said quietly. "You have Emma. You have Noah. You have me." She pulled back and looked at him, really looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. "Do I?" "Yes, for as long as you want." "What if I want forever?" The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Marcus had been dancing around this conversation for months, afraid to push too fast, afraid to assume too much. But standing in that hospital waiting room surrounded by the smell of antiseptic and the sound of distant beeping machines, he realized he was done being afraid. Then forever it is. Destiny's grandmother was released from the hospital 2 weeks later. She moved into a comfortable apartment near the Wellington mansion, close enough for daily visits, but far enough to maintain her independence. "I'm not dying in some billionaire's guest house," she announced when Marcus offered her a room. "I've lived 81 years on my own terms. I'm not stopping now." "Grandma," Destiny protested. "Don't you grandma me. I know what I'm about." The old woman fixed Marcus with a piercing stare. "You treat my granddaughter right, you hear? She's the best thing that ever came out of this family." "I know she is. And those children of yours, they're good kids. They deserve a real mother." "Grandma, we're not headed that direction." She laughed, a sound like rustling paper. "I may be old, but I'm not blind. I see the way you two look at each other." Marcus felt heat rising to his cheeks. "Mrs. Johnson, Call me Grandma Ruby, everyone does." "Grandma Ruby, I promise you I have only the best intentions toward Destiny." "Intentions are nice. Actions are better." She leaned forward. "You put a ring on that finger, young man, before some other fool realizes what he's missing." Marcus glanced at Destiny, who was covering her face with her hands in embarrassment. "I'm working on it," he said. And he was. The ring had been in his pocket for 3 weeks. A simple band with a single diamond, elegant and understated. He had chosen it himself, spending hours at the jeweler, wanting to find something that would reflect who Destiny was. Not flashy or pretentious, but genuine and beautiful. He just hadn't found the right moment. That moment came on a Sunday afternoon in late February, almost exactly 1 year after he had first put on that ridiculous gardener disguise. The children were playing in the garden. Emma was showing Noah how to plant seeds, explaining with the authority of a 6-year-old expert that flowers needed water and sunshine, and love to grow. Destiny sat on the bench under the oak tree watching them with a smile that made Marcus's heart ache. He walked over and sat beside her. "Do you remember what this tree means?" he asked. "You planted it when Emma was born. You told me once." Sarah picked it out. She said oaks lived for hundreds of years. She wanted something that would outlast us, that would be here for our children and our grandchildren. Destiny was quiet, sensing that he was building to something important. "When she died, I thought about cutting it down. It hurt too much to look at it. But Emma loved climbing in its branches, and I couldn't take that away from her." Marcus turned to face Destiny. "I'm glad I kept it, because now it's part of a different story. A new story." "What kind of story?" "The kind where a broken man meets an extraordinary woman. The kind where a family that was almost destroyed becomes stronger than ever. The kind where—" His voice caught. "The kind where love finds a way to bloom again, even after you thought it never would." Destiny's eyes were glistening. "Marcus!" He reached into his pocket and pulled out the ring box. Her breath caught in her throat. "I've been carrying this around for weeks trying to find the perfect moment. But there is no perfect moment. There's just this. You and me and those kids over there and all the messy, beautiful life in between." He opened the box, revealing the diamond that caught the afternoon light. "Destiny Johnson. You walked into my life as a maid and became my family. You protected my children when I couldn't. You stood up to monsters and never backed down. You taught me that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up every day for the people who matter." He got down on one knee, his heart pounding harder than it had during the fight with Brandon. "Will you marry me?" Destiny stared at him, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, she didn't speak, and Marcus felt a flash of fear. Had he misread everything? Was this too soon, too presumptuous, too— Yes. The word came out as barely a whisper. "Yes." He repeated, hardly daring to believe it. "Yes." She laughed through her tears and pulled him to his feet. "Yes, you ridiculous, wonderful man. Yes, I'll marry you." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling. It fit perfectly. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "You're beautiful." "Daddy, Miss Destiny, look at us." They turned to see Emma and Noah running toward them, faces covered in dirt, hands full of seeds. "We planted flowers," Emma announced. "They're going to grow really tall and smell really good." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Marcus caught her as she launched herself into his arms. "Why is Miss Destiny crying?" "Happy tears, baby girl. Very happy tears." Emma studied Destiny's face, then noticed the ring. Her eyes went wide. "Is that a diamond? Like in the princess movies?" Destiny laughed. "Something like that." "Does that mean you're going to be our mommy?" The question hung in the air, innocent and profound. Destiny looked at Marcus, then at Emma, then at Noah, who was tugging at her sleeve. "Would you like that?" Destiny asked carefully. "If I was your mommy?" Emma nodded vigorously. "You're already almost our mommy. You just didn't have the right title." "The right title?" "Yeah, like how Daddy is Daddy because he's our father. You need a mommy name so everyone knows you belong to us." Destiny knelt down so she was eye level with both children. "I would be honored to be your mommy, if that's okay with you." "It's more than okay," Emma said solemnly. "It's perfect." Noah, not fully understanding, but sensing the importance of the moment, raised his arms to be picked up. Destiny obliged, and he immediately wrapped his arms around her neck. "Mommy," he said, testing the word. It was the first time he had called anyone that since Sarah died. Destiny closed her eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks, and held him tight. "Yes, sweet boy. Mommy." The wedding took place in May in the garden where so much had happened. The oak tree provided shade for the guests, its branches heavy with new spring leaves. Marcus had wanted to keep it small, just family and close friends. Destiny had agreed, then proceeded to invite half of Compton. "They're my people," she said when Marcus raised an eyebrow at the guest list. "You can't marry me without meeting my people." He couldn't argue with that. Grandma Ruby sat in the front row dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Next to her sat David Carter and his wife, along with Detective Morrison, who had become something like a family friend over the past year. The children had important roles. Emma was the flower girl taking her responsibilities with the gravity of a world leader negotiating peace treaties. Noah was the ring bearer, though Mrs. Patterson walked beside him to make sure the rings actually made it to the altar. When Destiny appeared at the end of the aisle, Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. She wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated just like the ring. Her natural hair was styled in an elaborate updo woven with tiny white flowers. She carried a bouquet of roses from the very bushes Marcus had been pretending to trim when they first met. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. The ceremony was short and sweet. They had written their own vows, though Marcus suspected Destiny had gotten some help from Emma, based on the references to unicorns and magic. "Marcus?" Destiny began, her voice steady, despite the emotion in her eyes. "When I walked into this house a year and a half ago, I was just looking for a job. I found a family. I found children who needed protection, and a man who needed saving, and a life that I never imagined I could have." She paused, gathering herself. "You asked me once why I stayed when things got dangerous. Why I didn't just walk away and save myself. The truth is I couldn't. Not because I'm brave or heroic or any of the things people have called me, but because love doesn't give you a choice. When you love someone, you stay. You fight. You protect them with everything you have." She reached out and took his hands. "I love you, Marcus Wellington. I love your stubborn determination and your terrible sense of humor and the way you still can't trim a hedge properly. I love your children who became my children the moment I decided to stand between them and danger. And I love this crazy, beautiful life we've built together. I promise to keep showing up every day for the rest of my days. I promise to love you in the good times and the bad, the peaceful moments and the terrifying ones. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your family." She smiled through her tears. "And I promise to finally teach you how to use garden shears correctly." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Marcus blinked back his own tears. "Destiny." He said, his voice rougher than he intended. "I spent 2 weeks pretending to be a gardener so I could uncover the truth about a woman who was hurting my children. I thought I was being strategic, clever, smart." He shook his head. "I was none of those things. I was scared. Scared of losing my kids, scared of making the wrong choice, scared of everything. And in the middle of all that fear, I found you." He squeezed her hands. "You weren't scared, even when you had every reason to be. You stood up to Victoria when everyone else looked away. You protected my children when I couldn't protect them myself. You reminded me what courage looks like, what love looks like, what it means to put someone else's well-being above your own. I fell in love with you the moment I saw you feeding my children in secret, risking your job to give them a few extra crackers. I just didn't have the words for it yet." He reached up and touched her face, gently wiping away a tear. "I promise to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. I promise to be the father those children need and the husband you deserve. I promise to never take you for granted, never forget what you sacrificed, never stop being grateful for every moment we have together. And I promise," he added with a slight smile, "to keep trying with the garden shears, though I make no guarantees." More laughter, more tears. The officiant, an old friend of Grandma Ruby's, who had been marrying couples in Compton for 40 years, cleared his throat. "By the power vested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husband and wife." He grinned. You may kiss your bride." Marcus pulled Destiny into his arms and kissed her while the crowd erupted in cheers. Emma clapped enthusiastically. Noah shouted, "Mommy, Daddy," at the top of his lungs. Grandma Ruby cried into her handkerchief. And somewhere above them in the branches of the old oak tree, a bird began to sing. The reception lasted until midnight, a joyful celebration that brought together two worlds that had never before intersected. Tech billionaires danced with community college professors. Hollywood lawyers traded stories with Compton grandmothers. At one point, Marcus found himself cornered by three of Destiny's cousins, all of whom wanted to make sure he understood the consequences of hurting their girl. "We know where you live," the largest one said, not quite joking. "I would expect nothing less," Marcus replied. They had stared at him for a moment, then burst out laughing and welcomed him to the family with bone-crushing hugs. As the night wound down and the guests began to drift away, Marcus and Destiny stood together at the edge of the dance floor. The children had long since been put to bed, exhausted from the excitement. "So," Marcus said, "how does it feel being Mrs. Wellington?" Destiny raised an eyebrow. "Who said I'm taking your name?" "You're not." "I'm considering my options." Destiny Wellington sounds like a soap opera character. And Destiny Johnson Wellington sounds like a law firm. She laughed and leaned into him. "I'll figure it out. Right now, I'm just enjoying being your wife." "I like the sound of that." "What wife?" "All of it. You being mine, me being yours, us being a family." She looked up at him, her eyes soft in the fairy lights strung across the garden. "We were already a family, Marcus. This just makes it official." "Official is good." "Official is very good." They swayed together in the darkness, not really dancing, just holding each other, letting the weight of everything they had been through slowly dissolve into the night air. "Do you think about Victoria?" Destiny asked suddenly. "Sometimes. Less than I used to." "Me too. I used to have nightmares about her, about that night when she took Emma. And now I have different dreams, better dreams." She smiled. "Dreams about the future instead of the past." "What does the future look like?" "It looks like this. Like us. Like Emma growing up strong and confident. Like Noah learning that not everyone is going to hurt him. Like you finally admitting that you actually enjoyed pretending to be a gardener." Marcus laughed. "I did not enjoy it." "You're lying." "Maybe a little." "You liked being invisible. You liked watching without being seen." "I liked learning what really mattered. My company, my money, my reputation, none of it meant anything compared to those two kids upstairs. And now I have everything I need." He kissed her forehead. "Including a wife who won't let me get away with anything. Someone has to keep you humble. Heaven knows I need it." They stood in silence for a while longer, watching the caterers pack up the last of the decorations. "I want more kids," Destiny said abruptly. Marcus blinked. "You do. Not right away, but eventually. I want Emma and Noah to have siblings. I want to experience all of it: pregnancy and birth and sleepless nights. I want the chaos and the mess and the overwhelming love." "I'd like that too." "Really? Really?" He pulled back to look at her. "I was a terrible father the first time around. Too busy, too distracted, too caught up in building an empire. I don't want to make those mistakes again." "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you're not the same person you were. You've changed, Marcus. The man who hired me a year and a half ago would never have put on a disguise and worked as a gardener. He would have hired investigators and stayed safely in his office. I wasn't brave. I was desperate. Sometimes that's the same thing." She took his face in her hands. "You're a good father. Emma and Noah are lucky to have you. And our future children will be lucky too." "Our future children," Marcus repeated, testing the words. "I like the sound of that." "Then let's make it happen. Not tonight, obviously, but soon. How soon? Soon enough. She grinned. But first, I think we have a honeymoon to attend to. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in the Maldives, a paradise of crystal water and endless sunsets. Marcus had wanted to take the children, but destiny had insisted on time for just the two of them. We need to figure out who we are as a couple, she said, without anyone else around, without distractions. She was right, of course. She usually was. Those 2 weeks were revelatory. They talked about everything, their pasts, their fears, their dreams for the future. They discovered that they both loved terrible movies and hated fancy restaurants. They learned that Destiny snored when she was exhausted, and Marcus talked in his sleep when he was stressed. They also discovered that they were extraordinarily compatible in other ways. By the time they returned home, bronzed and relaxed, and more in love than ever, Emma and Noah were practically vibrating with excitement. "We missed you so much." Emma threw herself at Destiny before she was even through the door. "We missed you too, baby girl." "Did you bring us presents?" "Emma," Marcus scolded, but he was laughing. "Of course we did," Destiny said. "But first, hugs." There were many hugs, and presents, and stories about the ocean and the fish and the beautiful sunsets. That night, after the children were in bed, Marcus and Destiny sat together on the terrace one more time. It had become their place, the spot where they planned and dreamed and processed everything that happened to them. "So," Marcus said, back to reality. "Reality isn't so bad. We have a beautiful home, 2 amazing kids and each other. When you put it that way..." "I always put it that way. That's my job now, reminding you how good we have it. And my job, making sure it stays that way." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "We're going to be okay, Marcus. Better than okay. We're going to be happy." "You sound so certain." "I am certain. For the first time in my life, I'm absolutely, completely certain." She looked up at him. "I know who I am. I know who you are. And I know that together we can handle anything." Marcus thought about everything that had led to this moment. The grief of losing Sarah, the blindness that had allowed Victoria into his life, the desperate disguise, the courage of a woman who had nothing and risked everything. And now this: peace, love, family. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if things were different?" he asked. "If you had taken a job somewhere else, if I hadn't decided to go undercover?" "Sometimes. But then I look at Emma and Noah, and you and I stop wondering. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is who I'm supposed to become." "And who is that?" "Someone who matters. Someone who made a difference. Someone who protected the people who needed protecting, and loved the people who needed loving." She turned to face him fully. "I spent my whole life feeling invisible, Marcus. In Compton, in rich people's houses, everywhere I went. Nobody saw me. Nobody thought I was worth seeing." Her voice caught. "But you saw me. Not as a maid or a servant or someone beneath you. You saw me as a person, as an equal, as someone worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. I know that now, because you showed me." Marcus pulled her close and held her tight. Outside, the garden was quiet and peaceful, the roses blooming in the moonlight, the oak tree standing sentinel over everything they had built. 1 year ago, he had been a broken man lost in grief, blind to the danger in his own home. 1 year ago, Destiny had been a maid with nothing but her courage and her convictions. Now, they were husband and wife, parents to 2 beautiful children, partners in every sense of the word. The journey had been painful. There had been fear and betrayal, and moments when it seemed like everything was lost. But they had survived. They had fought. They had won. And now, finally, they could rest. 2 years later, on a sunny afternoon in June, Emma ran into the garden with exciting news. "The baby's coming! The baby's coming!" Marcus nearly fell off the ladder he was using to hang a swing from the oak tree. He had insisted on doing it himself despite Destiny's warnings about his non-existent handyman skills. "What? Now?" It's 3 weeks early. Mom said to tell you to get the car. Marcus abandoned the swing and sprinted toward the house. He found Destiny in the living room, one hand on her enormous belly, the other gripping the back of a chair. "It's time," she said calmly. "Are you sure? How do you know? Should I call an ambulance?" "Marcus?" She reached out and grabbed his hand. "Breathe. I've been having contractions for 2 hours. My water just broke. We have time, but we need to go now." He stared at her, panic and excitement warring on his face. "Now, Marcus." "Right. Now. Car, hospital. Got it." The drive to the hospital was a blur of red lights and honking horns, and Destiny telling Marcus to calm down while she breathed through contractions. 7 hours later, at 11:43 at night, their daughter was born. They named her Hope. "Because that's what you gave me," Destiny said, holding the tiny bundle against her chest. "Hope for a future I never thought I'd have." Marcus sat beside her on the hospital bed, one arm around his wife, the other reaching out to touch his daughter's impossibly small hand. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She is. She has your eyes. And your stubborn chin." He laughed softly, tears streaming down his face. "I love you, Destiny Wellington." "I love you too, Marcus Wellington." She smiled up at him. "All of you. Forever." In the waiting room, Emma was explaining to Noah that he was now a big brother, which meant he had important responsibilities. "You have to protect her," she said solemnly. "Like Miss Destiny. I mean, Mom protected us." "I protect," Noah agreed, his 4-year-old face serious. "And you have to share your toys." That part he was less enthusiastic about. "Some toys," he negotiated. "Fine, some toys." When they were finally allowed into the room to meet their new sister, Emma approached the bed with reverence. "She's so tiny," she breathed. "You were that tiny once," Marcus said. "Really? Really? And now look at you. 8 years old and smarter than anyone I know." Emma beamed. Then she leaned in close to the baby and whispered something that only Hope could hear. "What did you say?" Destiny asked. "I told her not to worry. I told her she has the best mommy and daddy in the whole world, and the best big brother and sister too." "What else?" "I told her she's safe here, that nobody's ever going to hurt her, that we're going to love her forever and ever." Destiny's eyes filled with tears. Again. "Come here, baby girl." Emma climbed carefully onto the bed, and the family arranged themselves in a configuration that would become familiar over the years. Marcus on one side, Destiny on the other, and the children gathered close, a protective circle around the newest member of their tribe. Outside, the sun was setting over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere in the city, people were living their ordinary lives, unaware of the extraordinary love story that had unfolded in their midst. But Marcus knew, and Destiny knew, and their children would grow up knowing. That family isn't just about blood, it's about choice. It's about showing up every day for the people who need you. It's about fighting for the ones you love, even when the odds are impossible. Marcus had gone undercover as a gardener to save his children from a monster. But it was Destiny who had truly saved them all. And now, holding his wife and his daughter and surrounded by his children, Marcus Wellington understood something he had never understood before. He had spent his whole life building a company, accumulating wealth, chasing success. But none of it mattered compared to this moment. This family. This love. He had everything he needed. And for the first time in his life, he was truly home. The oak tree in the garden lived for another 100 years, watching over generations of Wellingtons as they grew and loved and built their lives in its shade. Children climbed its branches. Weddings were held beneath its canopy. First steps were taken on the soft grass at its base. And carved into its trunk, barely visible unless you knew where to look, were two sets of initials, MW and DW, surrounded by a heart. Because love, once found, never truly ends. It just grows, like an oak tree, putting down roots that will last forever. The end.